Hi guys, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery, and I'm located in Van.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Highland Heights, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
So,
Yeah.
all right, we're live officially. Officially live. I can barely hear you, Becca.
Officially
All right, we're live today
live.
with another guest, Del Goode
Yeah.
from D Goode Art. We've known Del for a few years, mostly through, I don't know, I guess good conferences and stuff. Is that kind of how we initially met each
Yeah.
other? Besides just Instagram, obviously, but
Yeah. I think Insika was the first time we met.
how long have you been going to Encika?
The last two.
Just the last two. Okay. So
No,
Cincinnati and
we
Richmond.
met at
Was it
ClayCon
was it
West.
ClayCon? Was it ClayCon the first time?
Yeah, we met at ClayCon West because you were doing your you were the head presenter, one of the head presenters, and then
Yes.
everybody was like
I remember,
like
I remember
he
that.
put Starvan in his underglaze.
Yep.
And
I remember that. Yep.
yep, that's how we met.
Yeah, that's probably
And
2022, 2023, something like that.
You're right. Yeah. The ClayCon and then followed on and hung out in Cincinnati and
mhm. Yep.
so
Yeah.
forth.
Would you like to tell us a short and well, it doesn't have to be short if you don't want it to be, but a brief history of yourself?
Ooh.
And yeah, we usually tell people to keep it between 2 minutes, but if you can't do that, that's fine.
Oh man, I mean, this is such
It's
an
okay
epic.
because nobody can. Nobody can.
It is an epic journey I've been on, but yeah, I can probably keep it 2 minutes. Let me see, 419.
You don't have to.
He's like to a T. All right, go.
We should probably start with you are a military man. No.
Well, let's see. Born into a military family. My dad was Air Force, so I mean that's been a lot of my life. Moved around a little bit. Spent some time in Germany, which was really cool.
Hmm.
Uh, as a preteen, young teen, and then parents settled in Florida. So that's where I kind of say I'm from. So I'll claim Florida. Um, did did went to Florida State. A really good time there. Ended up getting a bachelor's in studio art with emphasis in graphic design. You know, that's also where I was introduced to pottery there as an elective. Thought it was really cool. We can maybe touch on that later. Um,
Just a bit.
yeah, graduated from that, you know, and moved back home. Was doing like commission art and working at Buffalo Wild Wings and Old Navy, hooking it up, looking good and eating good at the same
Hell
time.
yeah.
And then 9/11 hit, and I decided to join to go do a little something. You know, join my sister who was in the Navy at the time, but I joined the Army, and you know, initially thought I'd just do it for like 6 years and then go back to commission art, and then 21 years later, you know,
21 years. Wow.
retiring, you know, but doing art off and on and throughout the whole time, really cool. And then kind of towards the end of that career, was it 2020? I started getting sponsored by Speedball. And then once I knew pretty much I was going to retire, I asked him if I could come and be like the janitor or something, just to kind of help around the building, just any job, just to kind of work for Speedball. And they ended up
I'm
getting.
working on that same goal right now.
Yeah. That's the pitch. I'll send you my pitch.
She wants to be
Okay,
the
perfect.
janitor. She will do anything.
I mean, seriously, I was trying to do. I actually wanted to do the marketing job, because they had, when I saw one, they had it open at the time, and I was like, cool, I couldn't do that job, but ended up getting the ceramics department. So that's pretty much been it. That's the career, doing art and working for artists. So
Wow.
boom.
So going into college, were you like dead set on the the studio art graphic design area, or did you kind of settle into that after taking some classes?
When I went to college, the dream was like, I'm going to be like a world-renowned gallery painter. Like,
Okay. Great,
like
great, 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 great.
I'm going
Uh,
to,
you were one of those kids. Okay.
yeah. I was like, I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna be, world famous. Del Angelo. Changed my last name to Jada instead of Good. Put a beret on,
Yeah.
like the whole shebang. Like that's really what I thought when I first started it. I like that. So I was like, let me go just experience it. I started doing graphic design stuff in high school. Like I was using like the first iteration of Photoshop, which is funny. Uh, I
Been
remember when
through all the
Photoshop,
iterations of it, huh?
yeah, I remember when Photoshop 2 came out. We was like, ooh, this is that new fire.
Brian
Um,
still has Photoshop CS4, so
oh, nice.
Yeah, or CS5. It was right before they went to the cloud. I think it was
Yep.
CS5 maybe, or
Yeah,
yeah.
I think five. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I still have that one.
Yeah, it was like, yeah. So it was like, yeah, I'll do graphic design. It seemed like, a good form of income to support my painting career. So I was like, yeah, I could do that stuff. And whew, yeah, it
So
was
the
just,
concentration was actually painting and then graphic design secondary, and you just happened to do electives in ceramics?
so it was actually the concentration was graphic design. And then, so for me, it was like, at the time, I was like, I'm one of the baddest painters, this world has ever seen. So I was like, I can do painting without instruction. Like I got that in the bag. Like I showed up a painter. I don't know graphic design that well, so I'll keep honing my graphic design skills. So it was kind of like the idea of just doing both. Um, so I was like,
How
I'll.
quickly did you find out that you needed to learn how to paint?
Oh, that took a long time. That took until years in the like, was it year two in the military before I realized that. I was pretty arrogant. I was a pretty arrogant undergrad. Yeah.
That's wild. That's
Oh,
wild.
I was bad. I was bad. I was cocky as hell as a
Damn.
like, because coming through high school, we had some pretty baller classmates. Um, I mean, we're winning competitions in state and all that stuff, but like not even having the close to the budget that we should have had with the schools we were competing with. It was just raw talent. And
Yeah.
so I showed up at Florida State thinking like, I'm that dude. And again, I just rolled straight into the classes, photography, top of the class, drawing top of the class, painting top of the class. And so it was like everything I was doing, like it kept the same trend going. And when it came time for me to, present for the BFA, they actually told me, they were like, you're outright unteachable. Like you're not going to continue your art education at Florida State. Like we can't teach you.
What?
I was like, what? I was all like, I'll show you. Like this, and that. It was crazy. But when I look
Were
back,
they like you're unteachable because you're so good, or were you unteachable because you were just so cocky?
so cocky, straight up
Yeah.
arrogant.
Okay.
Like they was like, yeah, you basically think you're better than everybody here. And I did at the time. I was like, yeah, that's why you teaching. Like those who can't do teach. That was straight up my attitude back then. Like, I was the worst in critiques. Like I'm booing people in critiques. Like, boo for that. Like this stuff is
So you were
garbage.
always giving feedback and they were like, really?
Oh yeah, I was shutting people down, man. But it was like a lot of that too was like, because we did run into a lot of folks that were like, well, I failed out of this major, so I needed a degree, so I switched to art. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I went in on those people back then. Like,
Mm.
I was like, okay, you're not even taking this serious, then I'm gonna show you. Like, I'm gonna show you that I know you're not taking it serious, and I'm gonna critique your art. At least what I thought was 100% legit. Like, I'll boo you in a critique. Like, you just did that this morning. I call people out. Like, you did that painting like an hour ago before class. Like, you didn't spend all week agonizing over that thing.
Right.
So it was bad. It was bad.
I don't know enough about painting classes, but are you challenged to do different styles throughout the class? Because I would guess you're kind of doing styles of impressionism or realism or still life. And are you doing samplings of that? Or is it,
You
Really
know,
'cause I would
depends on the
guess that
teacher.
you
yeah,
could see that like I lack skills in this area, but if it's like realism, it seems like realism would kind of be your vibe, but maybe you can talk about what your vibe was or what you preferred.
I was a
But
huge fan of Salvador Dali and Georgia O'Keeffe. Like those were like back then I was like those two styles. So I would switch and then abstract. So I would switch kind of all in there with their
okay.
styles. Um,
I didn't know we were the same person. Like everything you were talking about, I was like, this is my college. Like I was probably not as cocky as you, but I definitely was enough so that I left college with 3 professors hating me.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially my painting instructor. I actually even wrote him, reached out to him probably about 2 years ago now, 3 years ago now. You know, big old humble pie email. Just I was just like, 'cause something just popped up in my Google or my Gmail, and I was like, still, I was like, dang, he's still at Florida State and all that stuff. Like, let me reach
Yeah.
out to him and just say, hey, I knew I was a dickhead college student, like, blah 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 blah. Glad to see you're still blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, obviously no reply. It was, he might have remembered who I was, or he didn't. I don't know, but I was like, yeah, I felt like I needed to send that out. You know,
Yeah.
so but yeah, it was most paint classes were that's almost every class I've took, it was they kind of give you an initial assignment and the teacher will assess where you're at and then they help you with your style. Like, okay, this kind of tends to be your technique.
Okay.
Like when I took like the very, very first one, like freshman year of college, it was more of that style. Like you need to do this type of painting. You need to do, but it's really more of a materials. Like this assignment is tempera. This assignment is acrylic. This assignment is oil.
Okay.
You
It's
just
up
get
to you
familiar.
to put your own flavor on it and
Yeah. And
use
then
the
we had,
techniques that you've learned to.
yeah. And then they had one like take a famous painting and recreate it, but like in black and white. So that was kind of a cool kind of thing, but it was really more so the instructors just kind of leading you. I only had one instructor that was pretty much like, if you don't paint my way, like you kind of suck. And so everybody's paintings in
Right.
that class looked towards the end of the semester like that guy's work, like similar to his style, because he was like, "This is painting," and I
Right.
think,
That's yeah.
yeah, I was the only one that
There's
fought that. That fought that. I was like, but I do credit him um, with elevating my painting, even though I bucked him and was like, "No, I'm not painting your style." He called me out. He was like, "Well, cool, but you can pretty much try a lot harder than what you're doing. Like, yeah, you got enough to get an A. You did the assignment, but he called me out. I can tell like you're not trying." It's like, oof, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. So he was pretty integral to my painter growth.
that's
And some of
cool.
the critiques during that time is so like, how do you get your ego in check? Because it seems like so much of it is subjective with critiques and the teacher and the classmates. It's so subjective that it's hard to be like, this is where you were wrong or where you need to improve. So it's hard to just level set and be like, okay, these are the things I need to work on.
Well, I think now that I've taught a lot throughout the years, not necessarily painting, but more so like ceramics and photography and things like that, is what I was missing back then is what the good teachers were doing. Like, hey, let me assess you where you're at and critique you best based on that. Like I wasn't doing that. I was just like, okay, this is where I am, and this is where I think you are based on me. Like I think I'm top tier, you ain't there, you suck. That was that was kind of my mentality. But I also painted all the time back then. Like I was always painting. So I was like, I'm putting in the work, and all this stuff. And that's why I was like, I can tell how long it took you to paint that thing. Like, and I just like, no, man, we're not going to sit here and have tears and cry during critiques, over how emotional we think this painting is. I was like, no, it's not. I was like, they're lying.
Mm,
Like, And that's when the booze would come out and all this stuff. And then it was like, no, you're not allowed to talk in critiques anymore. I'm like, fine, y'all don't want to hear the truth. Oh man, yeah, I would jack myself up nowadays if I was walking to that class. We're like, who is this guy? Like, why are you even in this class, man? But nah, it's really just like any art form. Like you gotta assess people where they're at, and then just go from there.
So with like ceramics these days, do you think critiques are integral because not everybody learns in a classroom setting. So I mean, some of them are community studios and critiques aren't generally in those settings necessarily.
Right.
So how do you think critiques are helpful for that kind of medium?
There's a studio that I go to whenever I do go to Speedball. I'm usually there for like a week, and there's a studio called Create Pottery Studio in Statesville, North Carolina. Shout out to them, they're crazy. And so a couple of times when I'm there, that's what they do. It's like, and it could be their first, beginning wheel class, second wheel or intermediate or whatever. I think it's a really cool thing they do, especially in a public studio, setting, is when they do their glaze firing, they have an actual event where everybody comes and picks up their glaze pieces at one time, and they lay them on the table, and they talk about it. We could, it's like a loose critique. It's not like your typical style critique, but it's really like, because at this point they've bonded with their classmates. Everybody's like really cool with each other, and they're just encouraging each other. And, and it's really fun to hear.
Are they having individuals holding the pieces that they made, or are they just assessing a general table of pieces where they might not know whose is whose? Or
no, everybody's with their stuff.
Okay.
And then they're like, hey, let me see your bowl real quick. I want to get a closer look at that. And then they'll sit there and talk it. And it's usually the person the individual is usually the toughest critic, and
on themselves.
They'll beat themselves up. And it's usually most of the class is like, okay, you're being too hard on yourself, but again, it's like, and I always ask that, okay, what level of class is this? So then, I adjust my filter, in my comments based on that. It's like, okay, well, this is but then again, I do base it off myself, because my first time doing pottery, I was absolutely horrible. So I always judge off of that. I'm like, you're way better than I was when I started. So I was like, you're doing pretty dang good. Like, and it's good to have that switch nowadays. What's up?
I always find it interesting. Like I also had an unbelievably bad first piece in pottery. Like I have it out there actually, and it looks like a seashell. It is so bad. And like when I'm doing like new classes, I'm like, I don't think you guys understand what my piece looked like, because my teacher was nobody. Yeah.
They're probably like, well, you didn't have the internet back then when you were doing it, so you didn't have all the resources, so of course it was worse.
Listen, it was
maybe I feel like maybe people come in with higher expectations of, well, you didn't have like social media for this, following what other people are doing and how to.
Yeah, I think people are real deal. Like, I'm gonna make a dinner set tonight, and it's like, ooh, I guess. Oh yeah, I just want to make a couple of plates, and I'm like, well, I mean, it looks simple, but that's easy to make, hard to get all the way through the process.
They're so about that expectation, it's incorrect. And I like to get the weird shit out of the way, like right away. I'm like, okay, who here thinks they're creative? Hands go up. You're gonna suck. So let's just start with that.
Oh my gosh.
I usually tell people, if it's their first time, I'm like, don't expect to make anything today. If you do, great, but get that expectation out of your head. Like, except for when I was teaching like the 1-day class, we can get away with that in Arizona, because it's like, I'm teaching you, you're throwing, go to lunch, it's sitting outside. By the time you get back, it's leather hard, we're trimming, you're writing your name on it, and you're good, kind of thing. But I'm still heavily involved in each student at that point to at least make sure they leave with something. Versus when I took it, my first time taking it, like the way they did it, you had to be able to wedge a proper ball of clay. I think it was 2 pounds of clay. You had to be able to wedge it with no air bubbles. before you could go to the wheel.
So they'd like cut it in half and
Yeah,
check.
they cut it in fours. If there's any air bubbles, they give it back to you, re-wedge it. Like
I wouldn't even pass that class now.
it was like a 3-hour blocks too, twice a week. And yeah, 3 hours in, I'm still air
I
bubbles.
can imagine people just over the wedging table, just
Oh yeah,
I want to get this ball of clay. This better not have any air in it.
yeah.
Do you know what? I would just cut it off the block, round it up without them seeing, and be like, "Look, I did it."
Well, they're handing you the clay. Like, here you go.
Right out of the pug mill, non-de-aired pug mill. Here you go.
Oh, it was out of the sludge bucket, out of all kinds of stuff. But couldn't do it. Like most people got it in like the first hour, and then they were moved. Then you got to move on to the wheel, and then for the wheel, you couldn't open it until you had it perfectly centered. And then
I love that.
Then after that, they were like, "Yeah, whatever you want to do." But after 6 hours of trying to learn how to wedge, and then I think hour 5 in total in class, I got to finally go to the wheel because the teacher was just like, whatever. And then I couldn't center for another 3-hour block. And he finally just gave up on me. He was like, just sit in the wheel in the back.
Is this all a college level course?
This is college level, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like, just go sit in that wheel in the back. You'll be all right.
Use that kick wheel in the back and just
like, just get out of the way. There's real instruction going on.
Wait, were they kick wheels or were they electric?
No, they were all electric wheels. But
I learned on a kick wheel, and well, first, I don't know. I know you haven't heard this. I don't know if Ryan has, but I actually started pottery in college by telling the professor that I knew how to do it when I didn't. So I got an independent study. And so I basically taught myself, and I learned on a Soldner kick wheel. So they were extra bad. Like, and she found out real quick that I was lying.
But you stuck with it. There you go.
I did.
I mean, I took the class because I was in graphic design, and I got all my credits. And so they were like, you got to take electives, to get your degree, just go do something else. You're done ceramics. Mm-hmm. And so not ceramics. I was done graphic design. Right. So yeah, I pick something else. And so I took bowling and ceramics.
Bowling?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my God. I wanted to have bowling in college. My mom did bowling in college. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Bowling was intense, So, but yeah, it was funny. Because I was like, where are the ladies at? Clearly the ladies weren't in bowling.
No, probably not.
But they were in ceramics because it was right next to the sorority row. It was the first building on campus to them. So they all would take ceramics classes. So, and that's why the teacher was like, yeah, just go in the back, man. He was like, you're clearly here for another reason. If you haven't learned how to center or throw yet. I was like, yeah, struggle's real up in here. So, but I was just bad. I just couldn't believe it was the first art form that I ever did that I sucked at. Like, and I just couldn't naturally just get it. I was like, I can draw, I can paint. Computer work was easy, photography, nailing it. I even took mono printing. I was like, mono printing was getting, selling prints like crazy after the first month. Like, I'm like, this ceramics thing.
Well, you've got forces working against you in ceramics. So the other stuff is pretty still, and you're just kind of, it's all up to you to do the input. There's not really too much working against you.
Yeah, the ceramics. I always tell you, it's the most humbling art form ever. That's why I like it.
That's because it's not an art form. It's a craft. And okay, I believe that it has art form qualities in it, but people forget that it's a craft and it involves physics and it involves science and all these things. And that's why I always ask every single beginning class, who here thinks they're creative? Would be who's here more creative or more on the engineering side of things? And they're always surprised. They're always like, Oh yeah, I would say I'm more creative. I'm like, okay, well, the people that are engineering, you're probably going to get this a little bit better. And everybody's like, what?
There's a guy in one of my date nights that was, I think he did welding or something like that, and he really got it
Yeah,
because he's used to working with his hands, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I really just thought it would just come. And no, and not until there was a girl that was she's about, I think just over 5 feet tall. And she sat across from me one day, um, about probably like 15 pounds of clay. And she just slapped it down and just owned it. Like made this huge
Yeah.
face with like, I mean, she's centering with her forearm. She's like bringing this thing all up and just working this thing. And I'm just like, no. Like the type A guy in me kind of, kicked in. I was like, I will not be the worst in this class anymore. And I told her, I was like, I'm going to beat you. by the end of the semester, I'm going to be better than you. And thankfully, that girl said, bring it on. And she taught me. She was like, all right, let's do this, So she helped get me on the level 100%, you know.
Are you married to that
I
girl?
was gonna say, I thought you were gonna reveal this was your future wife or something.
Yeah,
No, 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 I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, I
because
was
that's
gonna
a
say
very
because Rachel and I took class together,
Mm.
ceramics class, and that's kind of how we started, sort of.
I don't think if my wife met me back then, she wouldn't have stuck around too long.
Okay.
It's like
You know
this.
what? From the like 3 minutes that we talked, I can concur with that. Like, she seems like she is a no bullshit kind of lady.
Yeah, it wouldn't have lasted very long. She'd have been like, okay, you're clearly full of yourself. You go handle that. You'll be good. Um, but yeah, no, it's like that girl. The girl got me there. She hooked me up. If we were in the lab together, she gave me all the tips and tricks. Oh, that's my phone.
That's a cool
Okay.
tone.
And then she really hooked it up. And then, so at the end of that first semester, it was kind of messed up. Me and her were in the lab together, um, just working on separate projects outside of normal classroom time. We just happened to, we were always in the lab because that's one way I had to get better. She was like, "You got to take this more serious. You need to put in the time." So I stayed. If I had free time, I was there, like always there. Even I was joke about it. It wasn't a joke. Like even club nights, because back then Florida State, you had the club at least 4 nights a week, and I was like,
Damn.
hey, you gotta pick me up on the way to the club. So I'd be in the in my club gear, just throwing, and my homies come scoop me up. We go clubbing, and they drop me right back off at the lab 2:30 in the morning. I'm back in the lab, finishing those pieces, trimming them,
Damn.
doing all
Dedication.
that. And then maybe going to sleep, getting like 2-3 hours of sleep or something like that. But no, but anyway, so towards the end of the semester, the our professor came up to us, and then he asked me if I wanted to teach at the student union. Not for an accredited class, but just like a fun studio class. Because I didn't even realize they had another ceramics lab on campus, but it was like, yeah, it's right in the middle of the union. You can just go take fun classes, and people from the community can come and take it. And I felt
That's
kind of bad
cool.
because it was right in front of the girl who basically taught me, but they didn't ask her to teach
Oh,
it, but they asked me to teach it, which of course back then fed into my super ego. I was like, ha, well, here we go. I done
I
conquered,
won.
I done conquered another art form because you guys want me to teach. Clearly I'm good. And funny enough, like ceramic progression stopped right there because I was like, clearly I'm good enough. You know, so we're good. And the only positive thing that came out of that experience is that I did fall in love with ceramics once I started teaching it. Because then I was like, okay, this is actually cool. It was already cool to like functional pottery is like straight up my jam. But then to teach other people, like, yeah, you can actually make stuff that you can use. Like, this is really cool. So at least for teaching for me is what led to my passion for ceramics even till today because I was like, this is really cool. And it's fun to show other people how to do it. But it was wild. It was pretty wild back then. Like every instructor there had to have a name. They'd have a pottery name. So mine was Pottery Pimp. Like it was crazy. It was crazy.
Pottery pimp.
Pottery pimp, like, you know.
Listen, you don't get to choose your nicknames,
Oh, I didn't.
Burrowski.
I didn't.
Was it because they caught you wearing your
P
club gear
squared.
one night in there or something?
No, I mean, it was a different time in my life back then. So, you know, it's just,
Okay.
it was like, hey, that's just kind of the reputation I had, like, you know, ladies' man, kind of womanizer kind of thing. So that's what they thought it was funny. They named me that, and clearly I didn't buck it. I was like, yeah, put that up there, put my picture by there, you know. But it was good. It was a lot of good times. I got, you know, like I said, the craft will humble you up. You know, I had a lady. She was like, I think 83. She said,
Oh no.
and she said, "You are my last hope to learn this craft before I die." I was like, oh,
Whoa, that's some pressure right there.
no pressure. No pressure. She's like, "I've never been able to pick this up. Nobody's ever been able to teach me how to do it. You're my last chance." So I'm like, wow. So working with her, I was like, okay. And she wanted to make a bird bath. I was like, of all the things, she was like, "We're gonna make a bird bath before the end of this class." It's like, okay. I was like, "You're gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it, but I'll help you do it." So that was fun. It was fun teaching that class. So then fast forward to today.
Yeah, so we're quite a ways between college and today. I was
Yeah.
curious, how did the creativity and pottery kind of fit along the whole, military journey? I don't know how much of a gap there was between college and military, but I mean, you said 21 years in the military, so it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's been a thread of pottery creativity throughout there as well.
So yeah, graduated with the undergrad in 2000, and then moved back home. I was doing the commission stuff, and then 9/11 hit, and I went in. So with my first Army paycheck, I bought a pottery wheel. So like, it's
Wow.
cool. Not first Army tax return. That's what it was. So it took a while. Tax return. I got a Creative Industries clay boss.
Oh, wow.
Right.
You don't still have that wheel, do you?
I do still have that wheel.
You do?
100%. Yeah.
Is it the one with the black splash pan and all that?
Yeah, it was a black splash pan.
Okay, I had one of those a few years
metal
back.
frame, like
Okay.
so for the plastic and all that stuff. So it's all metal. I have two of those actually because I bought another one with my second tax return in the Army. So I had two Creative Industry clay bosses that I still have today. So it was really cool. It was really cool. So, but it was really kind of like just party tricks throughout the years. It was just at least that when I first joined, when I was in the enlisted soldiers, like there was another guy in my platoon that was a potter in high school. So that was our fun on the weekends. He'd come over, we just do pottery, like not really paying attention to whatever clay we were buying. We just bought whatever was local and we make it and maybe fire it, maybe not. We just have fun. It was just, and that was really kind of it. And then kind of throughout the years, like I said, it would be like we were having a function or a party or something at the house, like, I break it out, because how many soldiers have pottery wheels hanging out, in their garage? People wouldn't believe me. So I was like, yeah, let's go do some pottery. Let's throw some vases or something and just kind of have fun with it. And then, most of your military installations have art centers. And so as I'm moving every, 1 to 2 years, I would always go look for the art center first and see if they had a ceramics program. And so I would go do guest instruction there, help them out with the program as I could, just to kind of, that's like the only connection I still kind of had with the clay community, which ain't really connection at all. But, but it was just, yeah, I just go in there and it usually only lasts for like the first 2 months that I was at the new installation, because then my real job would kick in. And I was like, okay, I don't really have time to come over here anymore, kind of stuff. And then that lasted all the way until, I hit the rank of major. And then they were like, hey, if you want to keep going above major, you need to get your master's in something. Like, we don't care what it is, get it in something. And so that's when I was like, can I get it in ceramics? And, and that goes back to like now, I'm like years later, that cocky guy is gone. Not that same dude anymore. Like been humbled over, humbled up 1,000 times since then.
Is that humbling from the military experience, you think? Or is it just with age, a
Nah,
combination?
it was actually one particular day that changed my entire art outlook, humility jam.
Are you
Right.
going to tell us?
I could tell you that story.
I would love to hear
We
it.
would like to hear it.
Let me mute the pew pews real quick.
I keep thinking my headphones are dying.
It kind of has that sound.
So I'll give the condensed sort of kind of version as fast as I can. But so enlisted in the Army as a Black Hawk mechanic. When I went in after 9/11, I was like, all right, we'll do Black Hawk mechanic kind of stuff. Had a really great recruiter, actually. Shout out to him. He was actually really good. Actually, man didn't actually tell me a single lie. I know recruiters get a bad rap, but everything that man actually told me was legit. So he convinced me to come in aviation, and I was like, pick an airframe. I don't care. So I picked Black Hawks. Second year I was in, I got deployed to Iraq. And one of the things that most units do when they get over there is they try to find the artist in the formation, because a big thing for us is painting murals, to stamp your mark in the combat zone. And
cool.
It's a huge morale boost. Everybody like gets behind the mural. And so they were looking for artists. And right before we deployed, I was using my graphic design stuff for the unit. So they was like, well, he's a graphic designer. He's a painter too. That's kind of how military people think. Well, you can do one thing art, you can do all things art. So it was like, Dell's a painter. So make him go paint. Needless to say, I actually was a painter. They had never seen me paint, but I was like, okay, here's a chance for me to paint. And it was a 35-foot long barrier, helicopter barrier, because this is on a flight line out there. And it was about 5 feet. Yeah, so 5 feet tall, 35 feet long. And I was given a 10-foot section of the wall to paint to represent my unit, because there's more units than just my unit. And every unit was going to send their designated painter to go out there, paint on the wall until the wall is done. But I was given one specific rule not to break, and I was upset by that rule. So, the commander was like, you won't, there's different, there's different echelons in the military of units, right? Different levels of hierarchy. And he was like, don't paint anything below this level. Because if you do, then there's going to be like all kinds of people out here trying to paint. You want to keep it at a certain level.
You're talking about quality level.
Not quality level. So you have like a division. Under the division, you have brigades. Under the brigades, you have battalions. And that number grows as you go down.
Okay.
Right? So battalion wise, he was like, I think at the time, there was like 5 battalions operating on that airfield. So he was like, don't paint below the battalion level so every battalion can get representation. If you paint at the company level, now I've just multiplied that to like 20 companies. So now 20 different companies are going to want to paint and have representation on the wall, versus those 5 symbols still represent all 20 people or 20 units.
Right.
So I didn't understand that at the time. I was like, well, if I'm out here painting and it's 114 degrees out here every day, like I should be able to paint whatever the hell I want, So when he walks away, his secondhand guy comes around the corner, is talking to me about painting. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, do you mind if I paint my company? And he was like, cool. Why not? Why wouldn't you? You're the one out here painting. So I mommy daddy the whole situation. I was like, well, daddy can't let me do it. I'm gonna ask mommy. And so mommy said yes. So I went to painting what I wanted. Sure enough, people at the company level wanted to represent their companies. So now I'm painting instead of 2 symbols I had to paint. Now I got to paint like 8. But I'm doing it because everybody's like, now that's messed up. If yours is on there, I want mine on there, kind of thing. So
yeah,
I'm doing
only
this.
got 10 feet. So
yeah, right.
Squeeze all of it in there. I get, yeah.
And so as I'm doing this, the commander comes up behind me and he's like, didn't I tell you not to do that? And I was like, yes, sir. But, the sergeant major said I could. And he was like, really? He was like, okay, great. He said, check this out. You're going to paint this entire wall and you're not leaving it until you're done. and every unit's just going to come tell you what to paint. He was like, good job. I was like, what? So I was like, okay. So they started sending everybody else's, representatives to me, and they're telling me what to paint on the wall. Like, so now I have my whole orders for the rest of this wall, right? So I'm out here one day, I'm painting. Again, it's like 112, 114 degrees, and we start coming under a mortar attack. So now stuff's blowing up all around me. Like I hit the ground like I'm supposed to, shrapnel's flying everywhere and stuff. And I'm like, I started thinking of through things. I was like, how am I painting a mural that's probably worth several thousands of dollars for free in a combat zone? And I'm dodging mortars right now. And I'm like, and so just my whole kind of art career just kind of flashed before my eyes. I was like, dude, you've always been the most cockiest, ungrateful, like just not humble dude when it comes to your art. Like something's up, something you got to make a change. And so I just remember I was just like, thinking, okay, Lord, if I make it through this one, message received.
Wow.
And that was it. Like everything calmed down, everything was over. I made sure they knew I was still alive. I went right back to painting. And it was like, all right, gotta finish this wall,
Damn.
And then after that, like it was just art-wise, just crazy, crazy stuff I got to do after that situation. So it ended up being a pretty cool thing. And I've never had that mentality towards art ever since then. Message received. Art is a gift. Your talents are gifts. You don't have to have this talent. It was given to you. So it's like, all right, respect the gift. Spread the love, spread the joy the best way I can with my art. As you can see, that still kind of, permeates through the art that I do now. Just all about that joy, and making people feel good. But yeah, it all comes down to that one day where I was just like, wow, this really sucks.
Wow.
How did I get here? So yeah.
What a story.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was it. So, and it was just, and then once I became an officer after that, just using graphic design and painting and all that stuff to just morale for the troops and the families. And, there's a very few Army installations that does not have my artwork somewhere on it, which
That's
is really
so cool.
Which is really cool.
And is that once you got to certain levels, was that kind of an extension of your duties in a way? Because it's morale boosting and all that, or it's always just a side?
It's always just a side thing. It's just something extra you brought to the table. There's a couple other artists that I met throughout my career, and they would do these same exact things. It's like, because just like anything, everybody likes t-shirts. Military people like t-shirts. Goodbye gifts were huge on goodbye gifts. So it's like, hey, I can actually make the gift, kind of thing, make it more personable, save us some money from the trophy shop and stuff, So that was always really, really cool to kind of be able to do that and to use those talents that I had as an artist to do all that stuff for, pretty much 20 years in the military, just honing art that kind of way. Ceramics, though, funny enough, was not a part of it until, they were like, hey, get a degree, get a master's in something. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get a master's in ceramics.
And they paid for it, I suspect, right?
No, there were ways that they could have. And it's interesting with the military system, the way it will pay for your college. It's hard to do that art-wise unless you have a liaison that knows the system. So I found Fort Hays State University because I was like, I need to find a program that lets me do my master's without me being present at the university, because I'm still going to move every 1 to 2 years for the foreseeable future.
And it's a studio kind of work, so it's like on site's kind of required. So,
right. And I was like, and so I remember sitting there. I was like, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes, and I'm just going to call ceramics programs in the country and see if I can find somebody in 30 minutes that'll say yes to my crazy idea of doing a degree without being at the university and master's in ceramics. Right. So I'm in Kansas at the time. So I call up was it Kansas K-State. So I called the K-State program, and the professor who answered the phone, he starts laughing. But then but seriously, he was like, call in the Gangstrom at Fort Hays State University. He's like, they're like 2 hours or so up the road. I think they're starting a pilot program for what you're looking for.
Howdy, my friends. So I am just jumping in to talk to you about our favorite L&L kilns. We have been talking a ton about the mini kiln that they have, the new plug-in fire, and guess what? I'm not going to stop. It's so good still. I am pretty positive that I have fired mine over 35 times. I'm going to check. But it's still going super strong. I'm doing some slower firings right now, and it's doing great. It's fantastic to transport. I just did that last week. Fantastic. And I did see on their Instagram that they had some casters, that they were testing casters for the stand, which would be amazing, especially for a kiln like this because it's so tiny. Anyway, as we know, it is 12.5 amps. So it's 120 volt. It goes into a regular plug. It's great for apartments. It's great for small garages. It's great for renting, which I know a lot of us do, especially in this economy. And it has the element channels that we know and love. It's got 2 sets of elements, which I really like. And it is just marvelous. It's 8x8 by 9 on the inside. Like today, for instance, I think I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bowls and then 1 small cup in the kiln because I'm doing like these smaller bowls, and that it fit just fine. I actually had extra room, so it can fit more than you think in there. And I hear that Advancer is coming out with shelves pretty soon, but they also send a shelf as well with the kiln and some little posts. It's just so stinking good, and all of their kilns are so stinking good. Not only that, but their website is just a resource for information. That's why we love L&L. They kind of got it all right now. So anyway, you should just go check them out. You should just check them out. And the next kiln you buy should be an L&L. Let's be completely honest. Because I don't know if you've ever crimped wires in other kilns when you were changing out elements, but you don't have to crimp any wires in an L&L. And that's pretty awesome. So you can find everything that I'm talking about on hotkilns.com. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time. And I hope you're enjoying the episode. Okay, bye.
And sure enough, the second phone call I made, Linda picked up the phone, which is even crazier because she says she's never by that phone. She just happened to randomly be by it the day that I called. And I told her my whole situation. I was like, I'm a soldier. I haven't done pottery in like seriously in like 15 years or whatever. And I want to get a master's in it. And she's like, submit your resume. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a BFA. And I was trying to go into that whole story about how they booted me out. She was like, submit your resume. Let's submit your portfolio. Let's see where you're at, And I was like, okay. So I spent like 2 weeks just throwing stuff to at least try to get something decent to take a photo of.
Oh, right.
And nothing was glazed, I don't think, in my portfolio. Like I threw it. I found a local place in downtown Louisville that could fire it for me. Not Louisville, because I was in
like
Kansas.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Not Louisville.
It's not like, is there a Louisville, Kansas?
That was like not Louisville. I'm mixing up places where I was at in this crazy journey, but yeah, it was in Leavenworth, but it was so yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty wicked that I was able to get into the program. And funny enough, I still kind of had that same kind of that cocky attitude kind of started kind of coming back. Like, well, let me do like some swirlware, some agate ware real quick. Let me wow my classmates, with some stuff. Cause I was like, I was still close. I was within 4 hours driving And they were like, hey, towards the end of the semester, we still ask, even if you're low residency, to come to the university for a weekend and, hang out with your classmates, do the critiques, do all that stuff. So I'm like laying out all my bowls. I just made a bunch of bowls and I'm laying them out like, oh man, I can't wait to see their reaction to this stuff. Like, this is going to be awesome. And I started seeing everybody else lay their stuff out. And I'm like, man, oh man. I was like, I have a long way to go. I have a long way to go in this craft. And
Wow.
Oh
Got some humble
no.
pie there.
oh man, yeah, there was some heavy hitters in my class group, like real deal ceramic artists. Like yeah,
Are
you
there
got.
any we would know?
Let me see. Herrick Smith, he does a lot with Scott.
Mm.
Oh wait, the guy that does the tall shit?
Every year, this.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, he was one of my classmates. He was I think close to his thesis when I showed up. But his critique and a couple of other people's critiques. So when we go back to, are the critiques helpful? Their critiques 100% were helpful. Like it was pretty much all like, cute, but where's the real Delvin kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you're not at, and they could tell like you're not at that. Just getting the A doesn't work here. Like if the work don't look like you, if it doesn't represent you, why are you even bringing it to these critiques? And so it was like, whew, and then just kind of just tips on just fine tuning stuff. Like one girl, Lauren Shield is her name now. She still shows every now and again, but she just kind of she was kind of looking at my cup, and and I didn't know what she was thinking. She was just kind of like, she was like, what is your intent? With your work, like what's your intent? What are you trying to get out of it? And I was like, well, I want people to, think it was like, factory made, but it's actually handmade. She was like, oh, okay. And then she just, based on that answer, she went in. I'm like, oh, but somebody else was like, it's not about that. The next person over was like, well, I'm just trying to get my message out. I want my message to be boom, boom, boom. And so the critique was different for that artist. It was like, oh, well, boom, 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 boom. But because I said I wanted to look like the manufactured, she was like, yeah, well, you're pretty far from that. You need to pay more attention to your feet, like the way you do your the way you trim the foot, the way you treat your surfaces, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, dang, yeah, you're right. Like, okay, that's that next level. So yeah, man,
Right.
it was wicked.
Yeah, I feel like there's, maybe I just have this perception, but some of the, master's programs that it's all about why you do what you do and explaining it and having this deeper meaning. And it sounds like it was catered to the individual of what you wanted to convey with it. And it could just be, I want it to be nice form and attention to the function or whatever. And it doesn't have to be super deep meaning necessarily, but
Yeah, the first question Linda asked you when you start MFA is, when you graduate, what is your goal? What are you trying to do with this master's in ceramics? And based on that answer is how you're treated while you're in that program. And I didn't understand that at first because, I just answered honestly. And I said I wanted to teach at the collegiate level. I was like, that's my goal. I will be a professor at this point. I was like, that's what I want to do. That's why I'm getting the master's in ceramics. I want to do that when I retire from the military. I'm going to go into academics, but I want to do it at the college level. So for me, it was all the syllabus required work each semester on top of my own projects was way more scrutinized than my peer who said, I just want to be a gallery representing. I just want to be in galleries. So it was a lot looser critiques for that student versus mine, because it's like, well, if you're going to teach it at the end of the day, you need to actually pay a lot more to these fundamentals and these different techniques that we're teaching. And so I like that. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I said it.
right.
But I'm glad I said it. I'm glad I said what I did, and I appreciated that. And then,
because going into a master's program, you should be pretty buttoned up of what you're there for, rather than, undergrad, you're kind of sampling and figuring out what you want to do. And, maybe you're, 20 something years old and getting through the program, or 18 when you start the major. So it's you're in a different state
Yep.
at that point.
Yep. Yeah. And it was like I said, once I kind of that first time visiting with the peers and realized like, okay, I had a lot of work to do. Um, Now it's like, 15 something years removed, or at least in military wise. So now I'm like I said, the story of the cocky artist is kind of gone. That guy's not there no more. That last little bit of humble pie with my peers. So then it was like, okay, I'm not at the university, so I don't have the instructor every day, but I do have that military discipline that I've learned throughout the years to now, and that was a big driving point for me is like, I'm not going to embarrass myself in this program. And I'm also not going to embarrass the United States Army. So if they're allowing me to do this program and the Army is at that time was paying for it, I was like, yeah, I'm going all in, and so it was really just pushing that envelope every single semester, like as far as I could go, which was awesome because when you make your own assignments, they were called problems. So she would like, 3 credit hours, you need to come up with 3 problem statements. And so you would just kind of dig in to like, I did a lot of stuff. I was like, okay, well, I did the agate wear, swirl wear stuff because I thought that was impressive. Didn't impress a single person in the class, but I was like, okay, well, can I get predictive on what this stuff is gonna look like? Because a lot of times you just swirl because you just think it's gonna be cool, which it always is. I haven't seen too many swirlware pots that aren't cool, but I was like, can I predict actually what it's gonna look like? Like, and I just really honed in on it, But that was my problem statement. Like, hey, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be swirlware. It's gonna be this type of clay. I'm gonna do, just really nitty gritty. So did that for a while, and just hey, I really want to hone in on my form. So I'd write like it needs to be 12 bowls, need to be hold this much volume and this little bit amount of perfection. It can only, just all kind of like you really just put your own kind of rubric as crazy as you could. And I put some pretty crazy rubrics and then I put extra credit if I can actually get to 14 successful bowls at the end of this project. Now I didn't get an extra grade or anything like that, but this is just challenging myself. It's like, just don't stop like I used to at the A. Like, no, keep going, keep progressing. And I really like that about that class because or that whole course, like, because I had to go back and look at some of my problem statements that I decided to try to solve, but they all reflect today in my work. So,
yeah,
I could never get a master's.
I'm sure they're all different, but I would guess, yeah. I mean, you had a little bit more to, yeah. You had to think about it differently because you weren't physically there, so you kind of had to work a little harder. It seems like to make sure you're staying up to date with it and getting feedback when you can, and not going too far astray. And
yeah, Facebook was, the Facebook group was integral. Communication was key with the professor. That was really it. As long as you're, jamming on the Facebook group and for me, I would just say, okay, which one of my assignments do you want me to send to the university at the end of every semester? She'd be like, okay, send me a cut from that series, a bowl from that series, a cut from this series, so they would physically at least have it if I wasn't traveling back to the university. And then one semester I had a job where I was traveling all the time. Like I guess for 2 semesters, actually, I was in a plane somewhere almost every day, 5 days a week, flying somewhere. Um, and had that job during Hurricane Florence. And so we had to leave and we were dealing with Florence in North Carolina for like a week and a half or something like that. So outside of the studio, so I learned really quickly at the beginning of every semester, like I would plan out all the assignments, plan out all the problem statements, and just get to work on all of them simultaneously. Because like I don't know when I'm going to be here. But the thing I had the most fun with was when I started. That's when I started the sketchbook.
yeah, I was going to ask you about your sketchbook because you shared stories when you're on planes and sketching in the back. And so, how is your sketchbook still the starting point for you these days with your body of work and what you decide to make or not make? Or
not as much as I want it to be, but I'm getting back to it. But yeah, that sketchbook during that time of the masters, especially that one year, where I had that job flying all over the place. And like, yeah, that was my travel studio, as I called it. And so that allowed me to, one, scratch an artist itch, because I was like, I'm not in the studio as much as I want to be. But by sketching and then sketching as realistically as I could, like, so, I'm buying the specialty markers. Well, I say specialty, but I'm just buying alcohol markers off of Amazon. And, I'm sitting on this little, 5-seater plane, for like 6 hours a day, going somewhere in the country. I'm just, in the back, just kind of like, okay, I think, per this problem statement, I need the mugs to look like this. And I'm drawing it. I'm coloring it like I think I'm going to glaze it. I'm writing notes as we're flying around, and, failing on paper or succeeding on paper, as I call it. Like, you either fail or succeed first on paper, because I wasn't close to pottery studios, at the time too. So it was like, it's about a, 2-3 hour commitment, so I didn't really want to waste a lot of time on materials. It was like, once I get to the studio, it needs to be like, I need to be locked in. And that sped me up so much when I finally got to the studio, having my sketchbook out and referencing it. And then once I made things, and as I succeeded or failed, the next day, like, I'm updating the notes. I'm like, okay, this, that, this. I'm taping pages together, so now they're like fold outs. So sitting on the plane, and then eventually, like, my boss, he started, he went from kind of, what is this guy doing? Like, he's drawing on the plane all the time, to, once he finally understood what I was doing, he was like, he started giving me my critiques, which was cool. So he's like, all right, you're trying to make
That
this,
is cool.
this, and that. So he'd at least critique the concept, before I went in and we'd talk about it and stuff like that. So yeah, so I actually have been secretly gathering, more. Like, I actually just bought a bunch of blending markers the other day, because I was like, we're getting back into the sketchbook. We're going to get back to like planning this stuff out before I hit the studio, and just having fun with it. Because I do have a project coming up that I think actually sitting down and drawing it before I hit the studio will be very beneficial, to kind of work that stuff out. Because I kind of did it recently, and I was like, ooh, that drawing didn't work. And I totally was going to try to make that. I was like, that's an ugly shape, kind of thing. And so I was like, okay, yeah, you need to get back to sketching things. Take that time before you hit the studio. Because I'm back to a point where I have very little time in the studio. So it's like, all right, I'm sitting at my kids' soccer practices and stuff like that. Like, that's time to pull out the sketchbook,
Right.
plan some
Yeah.
of these projects out. I'm there for at least an hour, hour and a half. So now I can utilize that time, take my portable studio with me again, and then work it out.
Yeah. I mean, with the creative side of things, your mind is probably always going with ideas, doing your military work, your speedball work, whatever you're doing. It's not something you just switch off. So, having something to put pen to papers, if you're a sketcher, then that's perfect.
Yeah. And you don't even, have to be a big sketcher. Like, it's like one of the cool things I got to do recently because of working at Speedball is actually sending out packages and stuff like that to ceramic programs, like with sketchbooks. Like, I'm not going to send you your typical pottery package. Like, I'm going to send you a sketchbook. I'm sending you certain pens and markers, and just use that, and some of them were illustrators, some of them weren't, but they all raved about just being able to get that out, like you said, on paper first, kind of get those ideas flowing. And then, like, I just tell people, I was like, just give it a try. You ain't gotta, it could be a bunch of stick figure, type pots in your, just one liners, just kind of give it a try, and then just a spot to take your notes. Because the thing I love about, because I went so crazy on my sketchbooks, is now I can go back, now that I have more experience, more skills, more access to different tools. And I can go back and make some of those projects that I was working on like 3-4 years ago, and try to make them again, and see if I can do them even better this time. See if I can make them look more like my vision this time. So I'm
Right.
pretty
You
excited.
got more tools in the belt and exposure to different materials and techniques and stuff. So you're officially retired?
Officially retired
as of when?
last October, last Halloween.
Last October. Wow. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for your service. That
I appreciate it.
that's a lot of
Yeah.
I don't know how to relate to that, but all I could say is thank you for your service. So
I have
Yeah.
a question. I have a question because he said thank you for your service, which I agree. Thank you. But also, is it awkward to be thanked for your service in public? Or is it just normal?
It's not awkward. Some people, it's kind of one of those. It's not awkward, but it's like, well, what do you say to that? That's
you
the
probably
big.
just
That's
say
part.
thank you, right?
Yeah, it's just like, hey, well, I always usually say I appreciate your support. Like, thank you for the support. Um,
Yeah.
there's one that I always forget to say is you were worth it. I always forget to say that one. I keep trying to remember to say that. Like, you were
You
worth
were
it.
worth it.
That's pretty nice, actually.
That's what we're
They
trying to.
probably get picked up pretty good from that response.
I heard one person say it. I was like, dang, that's a nice one, you know. But I'm not in uniform anymore. I mean, like very few times
Yeah.
do I throw it out there unless you ask. Like I usually don't. I'm usually not very forthcoming with that. Not that I'm ashamed of it or nothing. It's just I just just don't throw it. Hey, I was a soldier, kind of thing.
Yeah, the
Like
only way that
Yeah.
I know is if I'm at a show and I see usually it's older gentlemen, they'll wear the hats that say veteran and that,
right.
or if a customer gives me a USAA card, that's how I know, or at least
Yep.
gives me the in to be like, did you serve? And then if they say yes, I say thank you for your service, and then that's usually the end to just thank them without just being like thank you for your service without even knowing or how do you know otherwise? But
No, it never really, yeah, it never really made me feel awkward just because I know a reason why I served. Like, it's
Right.
100% like good, bad, or indifferent. I 100% love this country. Um, and just being able to support the people in it, whether they agree with me or not, whether we have different views or not, like, hey, I know I did what I could to protect your right to have that view,
mhm,
and I've worked with all kinds,
right.
all kinds of people. Like, hey, in uniform, we're like thick as thieves. Outside of uniform, like maybe not so much, but in uniform, like, hey, we
You got to
brothers.
have each other's back, right?
Yeah,
Because
in uniform, like,
that's kind
yeah.
of all you have.
And funny enough, like that changes everybody's mentality towards the end. Like, especially when you're first joining, you meet all types when you first get the basic training. And it's like, but I've seen people change. Like, I've outright seen it, like just come with some crazy kind of ideas. And, then, you just get past all that. It's just like, hey, what's the mission? What are we here for? We're here to protect each other and do great things and make it to retirement if you want to stay in that long.
Mhm.
Or make it until your college is paid for, and then go off and do other great things. So
Was there an expectation because you grew up in a military family to pursue that? Or was like if 9/11 were not kind of a switch for you in a way, would you have still pursued that, you think?
I don't think I would have. I really don't. It
Mm.
wasn't on the radar. Like me and my older brother were doing okay, you know, doing commission artwork on the side. I was kind of trying to work the galleries and kind of seeing, okay, paint wise, what are they liking and all this stuff. And like I said, I had a great discount at the Gap, Banana Republic, and Old Navy. So I was like, I'm doing pretty good, and I get half off on wings all the time. So I wasn't really in a rush, And I was, my parents were, taking care of me I was living back at home at the time, um, which was crazy after graduating college. But I actually had moved back home to take a contract job teaching graphic design programs. So I uprooted everything from Tallahassee, moved back home, and I was just supposed to be with my parents for like a month until I got on my feet, got in my own place. And then the guy that I moved back to work for, like, ghosted me and was like, what the? So I was like, okay, I had a pretty good life in Tallahassee. Like, I was doing well for myself. I was actually working for Lowe's, which is still one of my favorite jobs ever. I was working in building materials, learning all kinds of crazy stuff.
Got that
And,
engineering
oh,
and design together.
I learned I always tell young people that, like, if you can, go work for Home Depot, Lowe's, go in the building materials section. Like, you will learn so much about all the materials. And as an artist, it's like a hidden candy store. It's like, man,
Yeah.
I can use all this stuff to do all the things. And so I used to love it. And people would come with crazy projects all the time. And it's like, let's go, so, plus if you stay with them a certain amount of time, like you're golden. So I was like halfway through the golden time to staying with Lowe's, and it was like, damn. So, but anyway, so yeah, but we were doing pretty good, art wise. Okay. I'm stable. My parents were supporting me. They're like, do what you got to do until you can get on your feet, all that stuff. So I wasn't thinking military at all. It was still in the back of my head. But yeah, after 9/11 hit, and then we got the call that my sister got mobilized because she was in the Navy at the time. It was like, yeah, I was like, I'm an able-bodied young man. I can go in and do it. I really was like, I'm going to go do 6 years and I'm getting out. Like, I'll do my 6 years, bounce back out, pick up the art thing, and then we'll go.
Yeah. And then you retired a colonel.
Yeah.
Is it colonel? What was the rank? Is it colonel?
Lieutenant colonel. Yeah.
Lieutenant colonel.
I don't know. One below colonel.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh wow. Yeah, I forgot it is one below colonel, but you're a colonel in our eyes.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah. I'm an official Kentucky colonel. That's the thing.
Kentucky colonel. I was about to say Kentucky colonel.
Yeah, I'm a Kentucky colonel, so that's cool.
Love it.
What does that mean?
It's just if you do good stuff in the state of Kentucky, they give you an honorary designation. So I did some cool things for some volunteer programs while we lived there. We used to live in Fort Knox for 2 years.
Yeah, that's not too far from Louisville.
So did some cool things. So I got that designated while I was there. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Come in as an E4 specialist, and jumped. Started Black Hawk mechanic, became a Black Hawk pilot, and then that's just kind of how I walked away. So it was pretty nifty career.
Can you fly better? I know you flew different things, but can you fly better than Tom Cruise?
A helicopter, I know. Yes. Most certainly.
Wait, can Tom Cruise actually fly? Is he a pilot in his movie that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, Maverick, bro.
Oh, that one. Okay, yeah. I was like, wait. I was thinking well, I knew he did helicopters, and I'm like, I don't think he flies a helicopter.
Yeah, that's what I was like, helicopters I got. Planes,
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
You never know.
Okay, that was a dumb moment. All right. I have a question. All right, so you're talking about all the materials and stuff. This is more of a process question. How much these days are you doing wheel throwing versus slip casting?
I would say 70-30 split wheel throwing and slip cast.
Okay. Because a lot of your work just requires a lot of precision, and I would guess that caters more to slip casting, but there's also some organic natures to the form. So
yeah, I typically only slip cast when I have a big show coming up. It's like, okay, it's like, all right, I need to get a lot of work, and it helps because with the slip casting, obviously everything's coming out the exact same. Mm-hmm. So if I design a stencil kit for my graphics and stuff, like I know it's going to fit on those a certain way every single time. Because as a wheel thrower, I honestly have never tried to duplicate one piece after another. It's like, hey, I got a pound and a half of clay. I'm gonna make a pound and a half cylinder. I would like them to all look the same, but I've never held myself to that level of precision. Like, if it doesn't look like this one, I'm destroying. I'm like, no. I mean, a lot of people, even with my wheel thrown mugs, if I have a series, they're like, I mean, I like the fact people say, hey, you slip casted all those, and I'm like, no, those are wheel thrown. I do. I mean, it's cool, but I was like, I don't put that pressure on myself.
Sounds like your master's degree was worthless.
Yeah, I know. It turned into nothing. And that's funny. It's so funny that you say that, though, because that was kind of I remember kind of halfway through the program, I used to tell my professor, I'm like, man, I really feel like I'm not getting the most out of this program. I'm kind of nervous to have this master's degree, and basically I haven't mastered wheel throwing, right? And and she'd just be like, you're fine. And she'd just brush it off and go on to another subject. And I'm like, and then I bring it fine. I bring it up another couple of months, like, hey, I really feel like, because at the time, like I couldn't slip cast. I'm like, I don't understand slip casting. I don't really we raku like every now and again. I can't teach a raku class. Like I'm like, what are we doing? I'm like, I'm not learning enough. And then once I finally clicked at what the master's program actually is, and having a master's means, at least, Delvin's own personal definition of it, like it kind of was like, oh, it's like you're not a master at any of the stuff. You're a master at your own basically like weaknesses. You're a master at understanding where your shortfalls are and how to correct it. That's what you learn in the master's program, at least at Fort Hays State University. Like you
Okay.
recognize where you're not that good, but you understand how to plan to fix that if you need to. And that's why all of our assignments were called problems. So it's like, hey, so as I'm out, I'm like, hey, I can't slip cast. I just got into that was the Northern Clay Center American Pottery Festival. I was like, and they need a lot of work. I'm not going to have enough time to generate that work on the wheel. I'm like, hey, my buddy, John's coming. John R. Hamilton the third, ceramics to the eighth power 28. He's coming to visit. I was like, hey man, I know you and your family are coming for vacation, but can I spend like an hour or two of your time and you teach me slip casting? And that was a part of me solving the problem. It was like, John knows how to slip cast. Like, let me just ask. And he was like, yeah, man. He was like, pick up these things before I arrive and we'll hit your garage rolling.
When was that?
That was right before ClayCon when we
Okay.
first.
That was about 2022 or something like that.
Yeah, it was right before that ClayCon. When all that work I had slip casting because John taught me how to do that the November prior. And so I made a couple molds, made like 6 or 7 molds and just got to pouring. But I still had wheel thrown pieces in that show.
Right.
Like the Ricotta rhinos and all that stuff was wheel thrown, but everything else was slip cast.
Right.
It's funny that you mentioned like slip casting and failing or like not knowing how to do it because I was talking to my best friend Andrew, stationary Andrew, about just we were just talking and he was like, I still can't get over the fact that when we tried slip casting, we failed so bad that we never did it again. Like it was so traumatic that we were just like, nope, nope.
Well, I think it was watching John and how he treated his mold as an art piece.
Yeah.
Like, and then being in like Kurt Hammerly's studio and watching him treat his molds as art pieces. It's like, wow. Cause I was like, man, I just want to make the mold. He taught me the molds but I paid attention to how he prepped it. But then when he left, he's back in Denver now and like, okay, now I need to make these molds for Northern Clay Center show. Like I found myself slowing down on the mold process, actually caring about the outer surface of the mold, even though it has nothing to do with what's going on the inside. But it's like, I want nice looking molds like he had, like, and just kind of really, treat it to slow down and treat it, like it's his own art form. So yeah, definitely swayed me on that side. Like, yeah, slip casting is serious business.
And then it became slower than wheel throwing.
Funny enough, yeah. It's so for me, slip casting helps like if I don't have time in the studio that week, I can still pour 5 cups. Like I can do 5 cups in a day. If I just lay out each molds and I only do like 5 molds at a time. If I lay out each mold, I can pour each of those once a day. So
yeah,
come Saturday morning, I have 25 pieces.
Yeah.
Like, and there's no way I'd have been able to throw that. I wouldn't have time to throw 25 pieces throughout the week. But I can come and do all the, work and do all the stuff with the family, getting the boys here and there, cooking dinner, all that stuff. I can do all that in between pouring molds and just watching the clock. So for me, it's a great way if I know I don't have time in the studio to then switch. But if it's like, no, you got all the time in the world to throw or do slip cast, then throwing, I'm faster.
Yeah.
Are you still pouring molds, throwing, and Are you still pouring the molds so that you can get something additional made? Or
Sometimes I do. I'll be like, hey, like if it's
let's
really
go.
if I have it too, like if it's set up that way, like yeah, I will do that. That's when you're yeah obviously the most efficient at that point. But yeah, your brains has to be clicking because it's two
And you
totally
gotta have
different.
some mega damp box volume so you can fill those damp boxes or something like that. I don't know. What city do you live in? You live in
Tucson.
Arizona, I know, Tucson. I'm guessing the, stuff would probably dry out pretty quick there, right?
Yeah, I don't use damn boxes.
Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. We're going to take a quick break to talk about our friends over at kilnshelf.com. So I've got the Advanced Kiln Shelves. I've been having some glaze issues recently with a newer glaze in my assortment, and I've had some running, I've had some crawling where the glaze is not sticking and it gets on the shelf. Not a big deal to clean it up with the Advanced Kiln Shelves. I just scrape it off with a glaze eraser, and I don't have to, load the kiln and be super careful to make sure that I'm not putting any pot on the glaze spot from the last firing. So it's been a lifesaver there. And I've also been using them in the soda kiln. So if you're an atmospheric firing person, if you got a gas kiln or soda kiln, you could put them in there as well. They don't just work for electric kilns. So, yeah, check out the Advanced Kiln Shelves at kilnshelf.com. See the assortment of options they've got. They got half shelves, they got full shelves, they got little cookies as well. And yeah, check them out. Back to the show. Oh, really?
Yeah, I roll, man. Like I was like,
Well,
if I ever move out of Tucson, I was like, whew, whew. I was like, it'll feel like I'm moving in slow motion doing pottery because I'm so used to. Because even so, Rich Brown, he came out when he was doing his tour across the country and stuff. They stopped in through here, and we threw one afternoon, and just threw some mugs. And it's cool because he'd never tried Nara porcelain before. So I was like, man, I got some Nara out here in the garage, let's check it out. And he was like, all right. So he went out and he's wicked fast, right? So he throws like 11 cups, and then we go inside. And I was like, no, nah, don't cover them. Let's just go inside. And he was like, all right, when do we need to come back out to put the handles on? And I was like, well, all right, you made 11 cups. I was like, we need to come out in like 45 minutes. We need to come back out. And then
Dang.
you need to make all your handles. And by the time you make the 11th handle, you need to attach the first one and then just keep rolling. So
Wow.
that's what I'm used to. Like I don't use damn boxes. Like I'll make the piece and I'll get the handle on the piece pretty quickly. And then to slow the process down, I'll cover them with actually a doggy bag.
Okay. A doggy bag?
Yeah, the little poop bags.
Oh, just okay.
Yeah. I just cover the piece with that, and then that's how I control how quickly it's drying. So I'll just have a bunch of
Yeah.
those lined up on the shelf.
Okay.
But yeah, if I go to the studio to throw, I'm putting a handle on it that day. Like I'm not making a cylinder
Okay.
unless I'm putting a handle on it. I
Yeah.
won't start. If I can't get to the handle, I won't make them.
Okay. I'm a little spoiled. Well, that's just my workflow, but I'll damp box stuff for months if I can't get handles on them. I still got mugs in the box for, a couple months. I'll get to them, but I don't know.
Now, don't get me
I can,
wrong. Like I admire people that use damp boxes. I'm like, that is so cool.
I have 6 of them in my studio.
It's like I think it's real cool. It's like I just haven't done it. So I think I tried it a little bit in San Antonio because you can do it. You can do it. It's actually really humid in San Antonio, but
Yeah.
again, that one was different because I knew I could throw the cylinders or mugs or whatever that evening, and then leave them out overnight, and then they'd be pretty much ready to go leather hard in the morning. So then I would cover them in the morning, go to work, and then come back, make the handles, eat dinner. By the time we finished dinner and all that stuff, the handles were pretty much ready to go. So that was like a 2-day workflow for cups, at least there. But plus, I usually
there's
have.
something.
Go ahead.
Oh, go on. No, go.
Now I was just talking about storage and where to put the stuff if it's
Oh,
dry.
yeah.
I think if I had a studio where I could take advantage of damp boxes, I think I 100% would.
Yeah.
I think in a way it can be a distraction though, because I get started on something, I throw a bunch, and then I have to put them in a damp box so they don't dry out and I don't lose them. But then there's no incentive for me to finish them because I continually want to throw new things.
Yeah.
Well, I want to throw new things, but I also set goals for myself to throw X amount every week, so it doesn't leave a lot of time because I want to cross the things off the list for throwing that week, but it means
Mhm.
that the damp box stuff gets neglected. So
So maybe next year your goal needs to be that you actually finish it in the week.
I think what I'm going to do is shift it. Instead of 4 days, 15 pots, I'm just going to make it a blanket 60 pots thrown in a week. And I can make those anytime during the week and not 4 days necessarily. And I can shift. I don't think it needs to be next year. I could shift that in, next month or today if I want, but I think that seems more reasonable.
I think it sounds okay. I was going to say that I have never really thought about the idea of slipcasting being one of like how you were saying, if I don't have time during the day, I can just slipcast 5. I really like that outlook on it. And but also I was like immediately thinking like I can't really throw anymore because I have such bad carpal tunnel. And uh and it I can throw, but I don't if I do it for like business type stuff, it will just I know it'll end badly. So I don't. And I've been throwing for the Beal Pottery here in Northern Indiana, just like on Tuesdays. And even though like my hands hurt at the end of the day, I'm always like, God damn it. I don't like, man, I miss this. Like I
Hmm.
miss it's not even the act. I don't know if I miss like the act of making something, but it's mostly like the act of seeing something that I've made. And and I've never really considered doing like slip casting, but I'll tell you what, I'm not fucking slip casting in this van. So
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point. You need to make
there
them
is
somewhere
that, but
else. Well, I mean, once you make the molds, it'll be all right. You just got to make the molds somewhere else.
yeah, I'd have to like make the molds and then probably what I'd have to do is make the molds, do the things, and then make the molds, make the pots, and then take them and then paint the pots. Or at that point, I could just buy Mako pots and just paint those.
Hey,
Might as well.
I've done some pretty great things with the with those paint your own pottery pieces.
The
Yeah,
Cone 6 ones are great.
yeah. I was actually got a workshop coming up, and this is exactly what we're going to be using. A lot of like, hey, it'll come out still come out cool. But
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I mean, once I kind of, I have not perfected the technique whatsoever. My slip cast molds are still pretty rough. I still have to do more cleanup than what I'd like to admit on my pieces when they pop out. But it is still really cool to be like, hey, I chose those objects, because that's one of the things that he's a master at finding found objects and turning
Mm-hmm.
those into, seeing that as a future mold, like that's a handle on a blower, like a garden blower, and I'm gonna take that and use that as a handle for a mug in the future. Like, he'll do stuff like that, and so it's just fun, kind of taking that from him. And even though my pieces are still really really simple that I slip cast, it is still knowing that yes, that was a cup, but I actually made a ring to go on the bottom and put that in there and molded that whole thing together. So it's still like not just finding a simple object and molding it. Like he taught me how to just think outside of the box on that and build your pieces, mold that thing that you created. So I do get a kick out of that when it actually does come out pretty successful. So
Yeah, you've got to actually do the thing and make the molds and learn what the pieces look like after and how to build onto that and have the building blocks because like Becca's made a mold. I've made a mold. I've never actually slip cast with it, but I think you and I did it together or something. I don't know if you did another one, Becca, but we did it for fun on a live one time or something. And I just poured it into a country crock container of one of my solid thrown cups and made a mold that way, but it was just kind of for fun. It wasn't like I never
Was
intended
that
to slip
during
cast.
the mold disaster that me and Andrew were doing?
Maybe.
I'm not even kidding you, Del. Like, we put 5 pinch pots, which are like this, like a small bowl, maybe 2 inches in diameter. I can't remember if we put them in fully made or like bisqued or something, but we've went and bought a fucking planter box from Lowe's that was 4 feet long.
Oh my gosh.
No, it might have been 3 feet long. 3 feet long, and put 5 of those bowls in, and then poured plaster in it, spilled plaster all over my studio. Like, and then the mold was like 4,000 pounds. Like, it was awful.
You gotta give another chance. Yeah, because my first time slip casting before John came down, like, yeah, it was stuff all over the place. And even after he taught me, I was still being a knucklehead and was like, yeah, he showed me this way, but I could probably cut this corner and cut that corner, and didn't seal things properly. And yeah, I was cleaning up plaster for a couple of days after it oozed out of the mold, and
Right.
scraping my table and trying to.
Oh God.
That's why I was like, you know what, this is a serious art form. Like, this is a serious technical process.
Yeah.
You need to treat it as such if you're gonna do it properly. That's why I was like, and because I work out of my garage, I have to shut down the whole. There's no throwing. There's no nothing. If I'm making molds, like, I gotta shut everything down for that process for like a week or two as I build molds.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to do it again the next time, because it's just like anything, you get better with each iteration. Um, so it's like, okay, I did these things good, did these things bad, and you know, so we'll see. We'll see what the next mode is. I'm not doing it as much, but I am always looking at things like, that'll be a cool mode. That would make a cool mold. Like,
Right. Well, I'm guessing a lot of that decision making factors in because you're using it feels like you're critiquing an experience sort of. You've got mixed media aspects, you got wood, the vinyl is used for some of your graphical parts, you got maybe some metal or how are you deciding what you're making and like series wise or the vibe you're going for? How do you kind of think through that?
yeah, I do try to I do try with the experience. Like, that's the key. And I think, not even I think, I know it comes from making so many military gifts for people as they left. It was really, because a lot of the military gifts, it's usually like a couple of things. It's like you have like a stand for an object, because you just don't want to have an object. You need to have a way to display said object, and that really brings it all together. And so I really, really like that. And I was like, okay, well, what else can we do art wise to kind of bring people that same experience, that same, like, once you get one of my pieces, I want you to feel like you won something. Like, this is special for you. I made it for you. Like, how can I do that? And I just have fun combining all the things I can do as much as I can together. Like, that's usually when I'm having the most fun with the work. I mean, if it's as simple as one of my stickers I can throw in there, like, that's cool. But, like, yeah, if I can make a coaster and put the coaster with it, or I did keychains for a long time, or when I really, really, when D Goode Art, when I really started taking D Goode Art seriously, I used to make a box for every single mug, which was a lot of fun, with a lot of work.
Right.
But that whole concept behind the box was, again, it was that experience that you could repeat. Like, anytime you want to drink out of that mug, it's in the box, and you go to the box, you open it up, you just opened up your gift again. Like, that's for you. That's like, but then it was like, man, people aren't using the boxes as I thought they used the boxes, which is no fault of their own. That's just how people use it. And they're like, yeah, that's my display case. Like, well, okay, cool. But in my vision, it was kind of like where you would store the mug. And they're like, no, 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 that thing is this art piece of its own, a lot of cool, compliments from the boxes and stuff like that. Um, but that's where it really just basically all boils down to that experience for the owner of the piece. Like, I just really want you to have a really good time, like when you use it. So, because I think everybody deserves a little reward every now and again. So it's like, if my piece can do that for you, all the better. So, and then now going forward, like, not that the military, restricted a lot of things, at least art wise, because I'm not doing any like crazy subject matter or anything like that. But I do just kind of feel freer to go crazier with that stuff. Now
Because they're
that
not watching you.
yeah, and it's like I said, yeah, I guess so. It's like, even though I'm not going to do anything bad, I always had to be cognizant of what I
Who
am
you're
posting.
reflecting.
And,
Yeah.
I still am representing the Army, even though I have my own Instagram page and all that stuff. So it's like, so it's like, you're not going to see anything. It's still going to be the same subject matters and stuff, and just fun stuff. And, doing Northern Clay Center again here shortly. It's a candy theme. So those mugs will come back. Those themes will come back.
Right.
But it's just, I really just, I don't know, I just really want to continue to go all out with the accessories now. I'm just really feeling that vibe right now. But again, also, I have better equipment than what I had when I was making the boxes. Because before, to cut the boxes on my laser engraver, like, it was about a 15-35 minute cut just depending on the box. But now that's down to like 5 minutes, or 2 minutes. So it's like, well, now I can actually, time wise, because time is probably my biggest hindrance in the studio. It's like, well, now I can actually make a lot more boxes that much quicker. So do I bring that back, or do I continue to explore like I just did, with the sweet mugs, like, explore a different type of holder or a different type of fun accessory, with the mugs. Continue to build that experience, and take advantage of my graphic design background, um, that I've had more longer than I've been a potter. I've been a graphic designer, so it's like, bring that to the party as well. So
Right, because you got the kind of wood. I think you had some acrylic in there too, right?
yeah, I'll break out the acrylic and do some crazy acrylic stuff from time to time. Um,
Yeah.
like, I've done everything, but I mean, I might even start like rolling up T-shirts and putting them inside the mugs. Like, we'll see, because that's the fun
Wow.
thing. Once I designed a stencil, like, now I have that stencil, I can put that on anything I want now, you know, and that's kind of like, the beauty of the MFA problem program, or problem philosophy, with their assignments, is D Goode Art truly started shining as far as what people see as my work today from a assignment at Fort Hays State. Like, it was, and the assignment was, I want my ceramics work to look like my paintings. Because at the time I was doing a lot of custom water bottles and stuff like this one. So I was like, I want to do a ceramic mug that looks like this.
Right.
So how can I duplicate the graphics through all the heat and firing and all that stuff and still make it look like this? And so that's what I went in really hard for, like, 2 semesters, I think, in a row, like, trying to solve that problem. And then once I did, I was like, shoot, yeah, it might be a different technique of laying the stencils and sequences and timing, but it's the same stencil. So it's like, yeah, now I have this design saved on this water bottle. So if I do want to go back, because I have put that on mugs before. It's like, so if I do want to go back and put that on the mug, I just print out the stencil kit. Like I said, it's a different sequence of how to layer the stencils and whatnot. But now after a couple of years, I'm pretty sure I can nail that pretty close.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting problem solving because you got the layering, like you said, and it's, a lot of people might just do, a stencil so that you can just focus on the one area and you just color in the one area and then you peel it off so you get a nice crisp image, but you're dealing with lots of different colors and tight colors next to one another, and you're not bisque firing 3 and 4 times, I wouldn't suspect, to get those colors so crisp, but
Nope.
And
But
I'm sure
as
you don't want to spend the time doing that either.
that's the key. I was like, I don't have time to do a lot of firing. So I was like, and that was part of the problem. Like that in in the problem statement was how can I do this without firing multiple times too? So now I got to figure out a way to put a decal, a pretty tacky decal on top of underglaze sprayed on Bisqueware and have it not pull it off. And so just working with that at different brands. I mean, because I was using velvet underglazes when I first started. The first series was all velvet underglazes, um, and some of the results weren't where I expected. I mean, don't get me wrong, velvet underglazes are great. Like if you use them, cool. I'm also big on not doing test tiles. So as I'm as the stuff is in the kiln, I'm painting the accessories. So like based on what color you told me it was and all this stuff, and then things were coming out of the kiln just a different color than what I expected. Like I said, no fault to velvet underglaze. It's just I wasn't testing like, hey, if I fire this to this temperature, what is it going to look like per this clay body and all this stuff. The same stuff I have to answer all the time now at Speedball. Like I wasn't doing when it came to Amico velvets, right? So that's when I switched to Speedball underglazes at the back then, which was pretty crazy because that's also the same time Speedball reached out to sponsor me. Like it's like the same week I was like, I'm going to use Speedball underglazes and try them out, and then they reached out, so that was pretty cool. But that's how I solving it with underglaze because I was using stroke and coat to do my graphics. But I was like, man,
Yep.
It wasn't as tight because
I couldn't get it as tight. I couldn't get it as tight, but I didn't. But you can get pretty tight. But
you can, but you have to fire low.
Yeah, if I do it again, if I was to go back and use it again, I would treat the stroke and coats totally different because now I've got like 5 years of stenciling pottery experience under my belt from when I first, because I actually did some pretty tight graphics with stroke and coat when I first started this whole process. So you can, and so some of the way that glaze reacts, like I might actually start going back and using it for certain applications.
Is some of this also dependent on whether you put it on greenware versus bisqueware because some of the layering comes out different depending, or it attaches to the pot differently?
I just recently started glazing greenware, like probably within the last 2 months.
Glazing or underglazing?
Underglazing, sorry.
Underglazing,
Underglazing
okay.
greenware. Because it's that if I can just do so now, if I have the time, because sometimes I just roll right past that step, but if I have the time, it's like I will pick a base color, do it, underglazing on the greenware. So that way out of the kiln, like that's one color that's already there. That's not going anywhere. So now I can be aggressive with that color with stencils because it's not going to come off. And that's one less step. I got to take the color at the.
And does the underglaze stick better to other underglaze as a base than if you were putting that on bisqueware and you had, putting the underglaze layer and all this stuff on directly on bisqueware?
It sticks better because that's a hardened, surface now. Like it is.
Right.
It's been fired. Everything is not necessarily completely vitrified, but it's fired and it's good to go. So now I don't have to worry about stencils at all at that point because I'm still only going to biscuit and I'm going to glaze fire it. Like I'm not going back. Maybe one day I'll get to the point where I'm doing multiple bis firings to get the final.
Don't do it.
Technique. But I was like, right now I'm like, nope, I'm gonna biscuit. So I fought it for years, but now when I take the time to do it, like it actually speeds things up in the glaze firing or the glazing phase. If I can at least get one, layer knocked out before it gets misfired. Yeah.
Becca, your hand is raised.
Yeah.
Well, I kept interrupting and I wanted to not do that. I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but did you know that the stroke and coats act extremely different on underglaze as opposed to just clay?
I did not know.
Okay, so just so when you do, if you ever do use stroke and coats again for like a decal situation, if you can layer underglaze under that, you're gonna have a much sharper line than you would on just clay.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like it.
Anyway, that's
Love
all I have to say. Well, I do have a question and I wanted to kind of move the conversation to a different place. So if you have any last words.
Nah, let's move it. Let's go.
Okay. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about, well, we were kind of getting there in a roundabout way, but if you could kind of talk about what your role is at Speedball. And we had kind of discussed at Nsika, or no, not Nsika, past Nsika. It might have been a couple months ago, that you had learned a lot and but also just kind of like what you expected in like a kind of a corporate setting versus what you got. And because we're artists, and I mean you are a army person, but like um but I'm sure that you like expected one thing and then you got there in reality kind of like setting. Could we kind of talk about that?
Sure. Sure. So I am the product marketing manager for ceramics at Speedball Art Products.
Okay.
Woo, woo. So
Product
Woo!
marketing manager.
yeah. So I am responsible for anything ceramic related that Speedball sells. So
Okay.
so the wheels, the bats, the boss base, the glazes, all new products that we have in the pipeline potentially to launch hopefully in the next year or so. That's all me. Working with artists and to bring those ideas from concept to the shelf to the studio, which is really cool. So um, was it? I think the big thing. So Speedball is a little different. I guess the biggest kind of culture shock was how small Speedball actually is,
Mm.
compared to personnel wise. And it was like, whoa, okay. Okay, we're doing stuff globally, pretty big time. But this is a handful of folks.
How
You know,
big is Speedball Art as a whole, and then the ceramics department within it?
as a whole, it's about I think it's like 113 or so employees, right?
Okay.
Um, and that's across all the departments. So you got your block printing, screen printing, paper, and then we got ceramics in there. And then you obviously got your office personnel, customer service, all that stuff. So in total, like 100, like 113 folks, and it was like, I was in the army. I had a command that was bigger than that. Like, I'm used to having more soldiers than that under my control. So I was like, that was kind of interesting. That was kind of the biggest shock. Other things wasn't as crazy because it was like a crawl, walk, run kind of process. Because I kind of started working a lot with Speedball prior to retiring. I started getting involved in things like the boss base, and I was heavily involved with the mid-fire line, even though I was still in uniform. Like I did a lot with the mid-fire glazes before they launched, which was really cool. Um, so that's me, like that. Like I'm that dude, And it's like as far as how many people are in the ceramic department, well, it's me as the marketer. I have my boss Kelly, who ran it for the last 11 years, right? We have Glaze Wise, we have an insane chemist, like I call him the mad scientist, Scott. Dude is crazy. We actually last week we just got through working on the next 12 mid fires we're going to launch. So we're still
Wow.
working on those, and I thought the first 30 were cool, but these next 12, crossing the fingers, are gonna continue to shake the game up in a good way. So I mean that's it. And then we got some really really great products potentially coming out. And the beauty of with Speedball is like we're working with artists for these products, just like the Boss Base. Like, yes, Rich didn't invent it. It's a classic, North Carolina traditional tool that people were just making in their studios. But, just worked with him to have it. And that's across all, categories. There's a lot of artist driven products that Speedball sells. Um, So being able to, have artists trust us enough to say, hey, this is something that I think would be cool for you guys to produce. And a lot of it is most of the time it's because it's a really great idea that they have, but they don't have the capability to mass produce it. Um, so being able to be at the front end of saying yay or nay on these projects is actually really kind of cool, and just to kind of see them kind of work out. Um, so, and that's it. Like, our customer service team is pretty great with answering inquiries and stuff. But every couple of times a month, they'll send one to me, and just being able to troubleshoot with artists and, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Like, that's the whole reason why we reformulated the underglazes at the end of last year, was several conversations with teachers. Actually, it was a lot of conversations with teachers back to back to back, like around November time frame, um, where we were already planning to do like a slow reformulate, but it was like, hey, like we're making it really hard on people to do their art, especially academia. And like anytime you disrupt academia, that's not the best thing. Um, so just actually listening to the folks and saying, hey, actually stop all production right now, and we're gonna redo this formula. Um,
Right, because otherwise you're just like, well, this is just how the products worked,
yeah,
and that's just
yeah,
how it is. Maybe you can change it with a new formula, but I'm sure the batches that they're made in, it's the process should be similar from one color to the next. So, you know, kind of got to rip that Band-Aid off and do it across the board to
yeah.
improve for everybody.
And it was cool to see the leadership at Speedball. Like, I mean, I hadn't even been there like 5 months, maybe officially, when I said, "Hey, we need to stop, we need to redo this now," and they trusted it. Not saying like, "Oh, Delvin is the one who." No, it was a team effort to be
Yeah.
like, "Hey," and then the fact that Scott had already been kind of working on an alternative, like in his free time. So it was like he kind of had the solution already ready, which was a huge, blessing in disguise. So it was like, so we were able to kind of test it pretty quickly, you know, and then move from that. I mean, you guys know, like one of the cool things is working with you all with the bats, and
Hmm.
it's just kind of, throughout the idea, like what way can we continue to show our appreciation to the artists in the ceramic field, and highlight, artists. And so we knew we were launching the new colors for the bats, which again, all those colors are from a survey we took at NCECA in Cincinnati.
Hmm.
It wasn't, even though, it was part of my job to pick those colors, but I plucked that 100% from the survey. It was
Right.
like, hey, this is what the community said they wanted.
A
Like,
lot of data, yeah.
yeah, so it was like, all right, let's go with these colors, which is a lot of fun to see. And then it was like, hey, can we make custom labels, and pick some artists out there that we just want to highlight and just show them some love, and hopefully rotate that out every year. We'll see how many years we can keep this
Yeah.
going. It's almost coming towards that time where we got to switch out. Um, so we'll see. We'll see. Just doing cool projects like that. Working with Speedball, understanding like actually how small the team is, and what we actually do for the artist community. And I think I'm most excited about looking at everything that we do make and being able to kind of pull from those different product lines, and hopefully in the near future provide even more stuff for the ceramic community to kind of use to do more art, because we do make some pretty, we offer some pretty sweet sketchbooks right now, and we're kind of starting to get those out in more and more ceramic artists' hands. And it's like, hey, like, what do you think about the sketchbooks? And that's what I said. That's what I sent to the university. Like, I sent them like 2 ounce, a couple of 2 ounce glazes per student. Like, hey, y'all can try these out, but I really want your feedback as far as the sketchbooks and the pens and the markers that I send you. How are they working for you? How are they not working for you? So, and that's a cool perk of the job. But yeah, that's me. Anything ceramics, Speedball is Dell.
Right.
I think it's really cool that Like, I didn't even know Speedball was a ceramics thing until I got into ceramics. But like, as you know, I'm sure you knew what Speedball was when you were in college. Like, did you?
No.
I remember
Okay, well,
using the Speedball for lino cut. We had the
yeah, the
tools.
lino cut.
Those were Speedball
Like,
products from my
that's like a
memory.
classic Speedball thing for me, is like a lino cut ink, and just from printmaking. And so I was like, oh shit, this is like the same company. Like, and they're,
Yeah. I think I saw the bats, but I don't know if the bats were, they might not have been Speedball at that point. Maybe it was still Creative
Yeah.
Industries. I don't know. I mean, that was back in 2009 to 2013 probably when I was using or seeing some of those bats, but it
yeah.
was a lot of the black plastic bats around too.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Kelly's had it, and she grew it to where it is today. So it's kind of my job not to mess it up. But like I said, we got an engineer. Like I work heavily with the engineer. He's a part of the team. We got um, the guy who builds them. There's primarily one guy who makes every clay boss. Like
That's
there's
so
a
cool.
second guy that'll do it too. But the my creative industry wheels were made by the same guy who makes them today.
Wow.
Speedball kept them, you know. And so talking with him is really cool. Every time I fly out there, and I love like, hey, this guy's built every single wheel I've ever used Speedball wise. It's pretty crazy.
That's wild.
And so yeah, like I said, so it's a lot of people have their hands. I mean, I know I said it's all Dell. It's not all Dell because, like I said, I got the engineers, the chemists, the marketing team, our social media guy, Fang Z, and Megan. Y'all met Megan. Like she did a lot of the stuff, coordinating and stuff for us. So it's kind of like, yes, I'm the ceramic manager, but we got people across departments that help me keep it rolling.
Yeah. I mean, just being engaged with Speedball for it's probably been 5 years now. I don't know. Just working with y'all and collaborating with y'all, it's been pretty crazy to see it feels like a condensed time frame the last year and a half or so with just the product evolution and underglaze colors maybe I'm just too really close to it that I see the
It's been
growth, but it is really feels like it's on hyperdrive or something the
Yeah.
last couple years.
it's been hyperdrive, and it's like when you because we have grown a little bit, because the beauty is like, yes, I'm running ceramics now, but I also have my boss right there with me who's ran it for the last 11 years. So it's like she's still there making sure, like, as a backup to me, guiding me through these things. And now there's kind of two of us now, that because she's trained me up, you know especially, like, probably the most difficult thing I do is take products from concept to shelf, and then to have somebody there, and I can support her and she supports me in those things. And I think we have more artists approaching us about products now too, so it's like, yeah, actually we can actually grow the portfolio a lot more of what we're offering, because, people are like, actually wanting to work with us a lot more. And it doesn't work out all the time. Like, it's not a yes every time, but it's still just kind of cool. And then we'll just, hey, well, maybe you should try this route or that route. Because I'll do that. That's kind of my main thing. If it's something helping the ceramic community as a whole, that'll get your foot in the door more so than this is my process, and I think you should make it because it works good for me. So that's probably going to be a no.
Mhm.
But if you're saying this,
Scalable,
yeah, this
marketable.
is a problem that a lot of ceramic artists have, then it's like, okay, well, what's the hardest thing? What's the second hardest thing on the wheel? Opening that bad boy up. Hey, the boss base solves that problem. People are already using it. That's something that we can do. A couple of other products that we have, in the pipeline right now, it's like it's solving problems.
Back
You
to
know,
your problem statements.
back to the problem statements. It's like, okay, but the problem has to be solved for the community, not for your personal studio.
Right.
Kind of
Right.
thing. And the glazes, it's kind of one of those, it's kind of fun to kind of look at the industry and kind of see what's out there, what's not out there, where can we plug and play. It's like, all right,
Yeah, because
cool.
that mid-range market has been, a lot of these companies have a lot of history in that market, so it's got to be something to entice people to go that way.
Yep. Yep. I mean, and that's the beauty of it's a tough market to step into. We're one of the newer ones in the scene, especially in the mid range, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the community as a whole, because we've had some growing pains with the mid fire line, but
Yeah.
we've got a great community that has our back. So people are like, hey, this problem, this issue, tweak this, tweak that.
Right.
And so we're doing that, and we're taking all of that stuff. Again, it's a lot of this is like community driven into the next 12 mid-fires that we're trying to launch next year. So it's
Right.
like all that feedback is just going to make the next even better.
The biggest like feedback I have these days for the mid range is the things I appreciate about like Kentucky Mudworks glazes is I get them in 10-pound bags of dry and I can mix them myself because I'm a dipper. I dip all of my glazes and I want a 5-gallon bucket of it. So it's like, how do you make that work? If that's even a good selling avenue for Speedball, it's like, can you do that with X number of glazes, or do you have to pick like a best 10 or something that come in dry and you kind of sample them and see where the market is for it? But that's kind of the way I think about it, is like, how can we get this dippable,
and we have that again. That is great feedback we've got from the field, on a couple of different occasions, and it's like, well, we don't have the capability to store the dry goods like that. Dry goods, we can't do it. We are entertaining gallons possibly for like our highest selling glazes. But then that goes to the brick and mortars are like, yo, where am I going to put these gallons?
Right. Yep.
Again, it's at that point, who am I taking away to put you out? And oh, by the way, are you sure this is going to sell? Like, because looking at their own sales trends, what might be, Dragonstone, which is our top seller in that line. Like that's easy. Like, okay, Dragonstone, we can make a gallon out of that, but is it the top seller in all the regions in the country? So it's like this guy they might take it. And then we've also heard some are like, no, we want your earthenware in gallons. And it's like, oh, okay, we didn't see that one coming, but that's also localized to a certain area.
Right.
But it's like, all right.
And there's a lot that goes into bottling. What is, can it sit for a while if it is not selling as quickly?
Yeah, it's and I think that's been a great learning curve for me, is like learning all those considerations, as far as speedball is concerned, because I got pretty decent at it militarily, picking all those things together. Now it's just learning, okay, what are the second, third order effects of,
and how many production people are going to be dipping commercial glazes? How many of those production folks make their own versus there would be a market for it? So
yeah, and I just didn't, like I said, I didn't realize just how tied we were to academia before I got the job, and so now it's like, oh, well, yeah, we do got to kind of consider, the impact on the teachers out there. Like, okay, so how does this impact you? Does it make it basically? It's like, how can we make your job easier? And that's another factor I look at too, because academia is so important for what we do. It's like, if you do pitch me a product, I'm also going to be back of my head thinking like, how does this help academia? Like, does it? It's not. Then that's not a deal breaker, but that is definitely a consideration. It's like, okay, will this make a teacher's life a lot easier?
That's why y'all have batches of glazes together, under glazes, where it's like a 12-pack or.
Yeah, and yeah, because teachers, they really like that. Like, hey, they just got it. They can go. Even with that, with the new 12 underglaze colors we just launched. I know me and you had talked about it actually when I started the initial process. And I remember you had asked me like, how did I determine the 12?
Me.
But on top, yes. And
Yeah,
then,
it was me. It was me. I was like, you didn't talk to Ryan about that.
Well,
That was me.
I
no,
talked to
me
him
But
and
about
Ryan
it at
talked
ClayCon
about it. We
West,
talked about it
but
at ClayCon West. And,
yeah.
but yeah, even with that, it's like, okay, we're going to do that. And then what's the next bundle? Do we do another bundle? What are the glazes in that bundle? And just being able to research all that and try to, and you never really know. Like that's the not so fun thing. It's fun when it works,
Mhm.
you know, but I like the fact that you have that room to come up with something that might not necessarily work, and it's okay, you
And then
know.
long term, do we keep retaining the colors that have been there historically, or is it time to part ways with some colors because these other ones fill a void and people like them better?
Yep,
And
yep, that's also part of it. That's another thing, learning all the products that Speedball used to offer that we don't anymore. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, cool. That's interesting. You know, the people didn't like it. Like I was actually spending some time in one of the closets at Speedball this weekend, just kind of just looking around because you keep a lot of that historical stuff in there, and it's like, very inspiring because it's like, okay, well, this didn't necessarily work when it was initially launched, like, maybe 10, 15 years ago, but I think we're at a point now where maybe that'll have some teeth if we
oh
relaunch.
yeah.
It makes a little bit more sense now. Um, but the only downside is like I'm the main person that has to make that work. If it's gonna
Mhm.
anything new ceramically is me. And it's like, okay, based on all the other ideas that I have for the ceramic category, where does that now rack and stack? What's the most important thing that I need to pursue next?
Right.
Because
Where
it's
would
not.
you say your risk tolerance is for stuff like that? Do you feel the weight of those decisions because you're the one giving the check or not?
I mean, it's
The
kind of one
check
of
mark.
those. I mean, when we ended up, like launching the 12 underglaze colors, it was kind of like, ooh, because that was my first like
The
heavy,
newest
heavy,
12.
yeah, the current 12, the new 12 we just launched. Like that was
Right.
my first
They're
like,
absolute garbage. No, I'm
right.
kidding, they're not.
Like that's the first like pretty much like this is me kind of thing with the backing of everybody else. But they're like, hey, you're picking these 12, and I'm sitting there with the chemist and saying, tweak this color this way, tweak this color that way. Um, relying on people that have been in speedball for years. Hey, what do you kind of think? Getting their opinions before going forward. So it's kind of like a shared success or a shared failure.
Mhm.
But there's room to do that. Like they're like, it's not going to be like the end of the world. It's just like, because we do a lot of due diligence. Like it was really, it wasn't like a quick task for me to say these are the 12. There's a reason why every single one of those colors were launched, and a lot of research behind it. Just kind of like, all right, this, and that. Same thing with the mid fires, like, or even with the bats. It was like, all right, these are the colors we're going for, but okay, now exactly what shade of color? Okay, well, we want this color. I want this hue of pink, but then there's also, okay, you might want that, but this is what you can actually have that's close to that color
Right.
based on what's available, because the colors aren't infinitely available in plastic. So, you
Yep.
know, because truth be told, one of the colors were yellow, like, and it was one of those that we were trying to shoot for. Um, and that was a decision I had made to try to go for yellow, and they supported it, even though the data from the field didn't necessarily support that the people wanted yellow. When I was like, yellow, would have been one of those I was willing to kind of say, hey, this is the reason why I think we need a yellow bat. I think it'll round out the packaging and yada yada yada, so forth, and we can go and do some crazy bundles and whatnot. But it
And
didn't
it
work.
completes the rainbow.
Completes the rainbow. I was like, that'd be really cool. But it didn't work out because the yellow because yellow is probably one of the hardest colors to nail down in a way that doesn't either makes people happy or it offends them. So it's like, all right. And we couldn't nail it. And so it was like, all right, well, let's pivot to another color that we know that people were excited about.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of fun
I
being able to
think
go ahead. You think what?
No, you have to finish your statement. It's kind of
No,
fun.
it's just fun being a part of that and having that mentality of this isn't what Delvin wants to see.
Right.
This is what this is what the artists in the community have asked for. So trying to give the people basically what they want is
And you're limited by product development and what's practical and feasible.
what can I do with the time that I have? So, but yeah.
Okay. That was a great transition. Um, I was gonna say that it's been I have not been working with Speedball as long as Ryan has. In fact, he had to because I used Speedball a long, long time ago and I was like, nah, I'm good. But it was mostly because I was doing like underglaze with clear on top and the clears they just didn't work together and blah blah blah. But when I came up to Kelly at in Sika in Cincinnati, she was like, "We'd love to send you some stuff." And I looked at her and I was like, "Are you sure you want my honest feedback?" She was like, "Yeah, we do." And I was like, "Are you though?" Because I am not gonna tell you some shit that is like, "This is the best product in the world." And like the first time I got the bottles, I sent an email. I sent this like super long text that was like, "Okay, let's talk about these bottles. They suck." Like, like and I was like, but it's been, I think it's so amazing. And that's the reason that Speedball is kind of like won me over is because of that whole like community situation. You know, they really care about the community. And not only that, but every time I was like, this is something that I'm finding, they're like, well, let's see if we can fix it. You know, and like very few companies take criticism and or advice and actually do something about it. And the fact that Speedball actually did come out with a new formula for their underglazes says so much about the company, you know?
Yeah, that was I think the community in general, their response to that was so awesome. Like we thought like, man, this is gonna take some time to build back up because we're gonna nix the whole thing. I mean, we were even like because we had I think in we because we're expanding in Europe pretty good right now. And we had just pitched them the underglazes and I was doing a lot of video calls back in November and just like, hey, this is how you get it to work, depending on your process, yada yada yada. And they bought it, and then like 2 weeks later, we're scrapping the whole line and we're reformulating, like so we was expecting a lot of backlash from people, and even both over there and local stateside, but everybody was like, nah, cool. We were like, hey,
Yeah.
these 12 colors outright, just don't sell them, trash them, we'll refund you. Like they're just bad. And then we'll get you the new
What
stuff.
colors were they? What colors were they?
Oh, I think melon went bad. One of the chartreuse was really bad.
Chartreuse
Yeah,
is
I had
garbage.
so many issues with that.
Soft pink was really bad. And so it was like, yeah, just hey, give us some time to fix this. But like everybody was so cool about it, like appreciative. Even today, like I think I saw earlier today on Instagram, a lady was like, I actually like the old formula Speedball, the new
I saw
stuff.
that video.
But she was really cool about it. She was like, well, this is how I do it
Yeah.
to make it act like the old stuff. And it's like, man, that's really cool. Like I mean, me, I was a champion for the previous formula, but now I'm like, nah, I'll just use the new stuff now. It's okay. I'll donate all my old stuff, even though it's still great. It's just takes a little different to work with it. I mean, the first time Speedball sent me on the glazes, I wrote Kelly. I was like, this stuff is trash. I was like, I can't use it. And she was like, okay, well, what's the situation? And she told me, and she was the one that told me about Darvin. She was like, well, add some Darvin, and do this and that. And then it was like, oh, Eureka. Like this is really cool. I mean, even this week, like we were, a couple of people that hit us up about something with the glazes, and it was like, this glaze or that glaze. And we take that back as long as it's legitimate. Like if it's just like you're just complaining, and then it's like, all right, yeah, that's just like anything else. Hey, thank you for your feedback. Have a nice day. But if it's like legit, like, yo, you need to check this out, you need to check that out. Like, yeah, we 100. Like I went because we keep a sample of every batch that's made for any chemical. So, I can go back and I just happened to be at Speedball this past week when a customer had let us know about something with one of their glazes, and I went straight to the retain closet, pulled it out, checked it, communicating with them, and just like, all right, yeah, we'll 100% go check it out. Because why? What it doesn't do us any good to not. If it's a legit thing, we want to fix it because people don't have time for that. And, you want the stuff to work the way it's intended to work, so we need to make sure it does. So,
How do you feel about like I guess the way that I see Speedball interacting with like people outside of the business makes me feel like they're probably really can you confirm?
you
You
broke
were
up.
cutting out there. What did you say?
God damn it. I said the way that I see Speedball communicating with like the community, god damn it.
I turned your video off. I don't know. It didn't turn off for me though. I was trying to stop your video in case it helped your
Oh,
audio.
Okay, there we go.
I didn't know you could do that.
I'm the host. I can do all.
So, way we talk with people, what now?
Does that relate to how you're treated as an employee? Like, are they good to their employees? How do you feel about like working for their company? I know that
He's on a
obviously you're not
recording,
gonna
dude.
come
What's
up
he
here
gonna
and be like,
say?
yeah, obviously. No, I know that. I know that he's not gonna be like they're trash. But
No, I wouldn't be here if they weren't good folks to work for. You know,
okay.
and I think that's key for me. Like, I learn a thing or two in the military. I'm qualified to do a thing or two, based on that 20 years experience. But I chose to come to Speedball, um, and a lot of that was just the one how I was treated as a sponsored artist, and then two, everything that's happened, since I started really working closer with them, in anticipation of taking over the ceramics category before I retired. And it's just like I told the CEO last week, I was like, it's not lost on me the leap of faith they had to take to hire a soldier, a pilot to now run their global ceramic department. I was like,
Right.
that took a lot, and to say and stay in Arizona.
Right.
So
Having that flexibility is
Yeah.
huge.
so I was like, if that's not a sign of a company, really caring about you, I don't know what is. So, and every time I go, visit, that's one of the things I do pay attention to, because that's something I had to pay attention to a lot in the military, is how are the people all the way up and all the way down being treated, so it's a good company. It does reflect, I guess the same, like externally versus internally. Or else I don't think I would have stuck around, at least even for a year. I'd have been like, all right, I'll just go
Mhm.
fly. I'll go fly medevac for a hospital or something.
Yeah.
So how would you
Oh, and for anybody wondering out there, oh, god damn it. Maybe I
for
should just
anybody
leave.
wondering out there what?
We will be having Kelly on the podcast once she finally gets her shit together and
Fix a date.
actually picks a date.
Okay.
I was curious how you would explain what it means to be like the professional artist network, and how Speedball partners in a way with artists individually, as well as because different companies do different things. They do like, they give you free product for certain things, or some is like a payment thing for certain
Mm-hmm.
services. How would you kind of explain what the professional artist network is, which I think is kind of what you mean when you said sponsored, but
Yeah, it's a sponsorship. That's pretty much what it is. It's you're doing great things out there, doing some good work, and we like your stuff, and want to support you and help you out. You might get contacted and like, hey, we like the sponsor. That's the way it happened with me. I was just posting away, just loving life, and hey, we kind of support. And I do the same thing. Like, hey, we like to support what you do, and that's what Kelly reached out to me. She's like, let me see some glazes. Let me do this. Let me do that. Um, and a lot of it is too, like Instagram is a huge place space that we're at. Like a lot of us are on there all the time, just kind of looking and searching, and whether you're using our product or not. Like if we really, like what you have going on, and it's through all categories: block printing, screen printing. Like if you go to the website, the network is large across a lot of categories of sponsored artists, and it's basically, it's really not much of a commitment. Like we just want to sponsor and it's, if you post, great. you know Obviously, we'd like that, but it's not a mandatory at all. um, do a lot of, like, if you're a sponsored artist and you're in the Speedball Professional Artist Network and you're doing a workshop, let us know you're doing a workshop. Like, a lot of them will tell you, like, yeah, I was doing this workshop and Speedball sent everything I needed for the workshop. It's like, yeah, cool. It's like, we just want to, having lived it for a couple of years, like, it really is, it's awkward at first, I'll admit, because it was just literally anything I wanted. Same thing, Ryan, anytime you want some bats or whatever, it's like, yeah, man, send Ryan some bats, because he's doing great stuff. We want to keep supporting you. So I'm always looking, at least, that's not why I'm on Instagram or social media or anything like that. But things do catch my eye, and it's like I said, and there's a couple of artists that I'll probably reach out to really soon that I don't know if they ever used our work or not, but I like what they're doing. And I'll just reach out to them and be like, hey, we just want to support you. Um, and it's a really loose program. I'm kind of surprised how loose
Right.
it
There's
is.
no contract.
There's no
Yeah.
contract.
Like, we don't sign anything. We don't promise that we're going to tag them in every single thing that has their
Nope.
product in it, or we're going
Nope.
to post X number of posts a month,
Nope.
or a year. It's just pretty loose.
Yeah, it's pretty loose to be in the Professional Arts Network. Like, there's some pretty serious artists in our network that you'd never know. And that's okay, and they'll still reach out every now and again and say, hey, I'm doing a workshop here. Can you send X? And we'll send it. It's like, all right, cool. We brought you in. Now, there's some, like, every now and again, it's like, okay, this person just outright, just, they're not asking for anything. They haven't done anything in a long time. And like, okay. But that takes like years before we'll
Mhm.
just basically say, hey, I guess this isn't a thing
Mhm.
anymore.
Right.
And we're looking for ways here soon to make that, a little bit more of a thing. Um, you know, Definitely highlighting those more ways to highlight artists in the pan, as we call it, um, and incentivize people wanting to be in the pan. Like, outside of getting free product anytime you want, which is actually pretty decent perk. Um, but what
Right.
else? I think there's a lot of things, like, because of the talent of the artists that we have in the pan, I think it would be fun to kind of tap into that for different events. Same kind of loose thing, but just like for instance, like yourself, like, hey, Ryan, we got this event coming up. Like, it'd be kind of cool, if you could, if you have the time, donate some pieces and such and such. We'll send you everything to make it. But
Right.
that'd be just kind of cool to just kind of help out. You know,
Or I'm sure if there's an opportunity for some school or something that wanted to talk, like if you could visit somebody that's close, because the network is widespread. So if it's, hey, we've got this person here, we've talked to them, there's an
now
opportunity, they'd be willing to have visiting artists, and we
we
can
do
have you go demo at that school. Or
we do actually do that. Like, well, that's one of the first things we do if somebody reaches out, like, hey, we're here, we like to do this kind of event. We actually do go look in the network and see, do we have any artists close to that location that's in our professional arts network, and then we'll contact that artist and say, hey, do you want to go do a demo for representing Speedball here, and there. We'll send you everything you need, yada yada. So even though I'm working for them now, I have workshops coming up. I have done workshops, and it's still the same for me. Like I got one in October coming up, and Speedball is going to sponsor whatever I need, which is really cool. It's like, this is what I need to send all that stuff.
Speedball's gonna sponsor my trip to the East Coast somehow.
Sweet. I know they're excited about you coming through. They're excited to see you in the building.
Yeah, well, yeah, I am very excited. We were trying to figure out a name for it today, and I got X-nayed on the Rainbow Road Tour, but it's fine.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
Melissa said it sounded too gay.
It sounds like
I'm
isn't
trying
that like
to
a music
be too gay without being gay.
I didn't even go there with it. I was just like, okay, yeah, makes sense. Colors. I like
the Rainbow Road, trademarked by Nintendo for Mario Kart.
Say maybe.
Yeah.
I thought of the reading rainbow.
Exactly.
I was like, oh, it's like an educational thing. That's cool.
Needs to have ban in it somewhere.
Yeah. No,
we'll figure it out.
No, it's cool. No, this, like I said, the network is cool. I'm excited to continue to reach out. We're always looking. So, and then people will hit us up every now and again, like, hey, check out this artist, check out that artist. So it's pretty fun to be able to support people, especially paying it forward for the way I was supported, until I actually started working for Speedball.
I mean, honestly, that's like artists talking about the products without strict guidelines. It just leaves it to the imagination of whatever each person wants to do with it. Like you can brand and create an entire, shirt that's branded, and you're going to go above and beyond with everything. And then some people are going to talk about the thing and just say, hey, this is what I do day to day. And this is how it fits into my, 18 different things I do in a day. But it's essential to have tools that work.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I think the return has been great, keeping it loose. I think we definitely have benefited from that. I know they used to, reach out to me whenever I was posting back in the day, like, hey, that was great, appreciate it. And they never once said, hey, post using this underglaze on this piece. It was just like, hey, I'm just gonna show them appreciation, shout you out. Yeah.
Sweet. All right, we are getting up on our time. You need to go take one of your sons to soccer.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, soccer time.
Soccer time. All right, Del, appreciate the time. Becca, any last words or things for Del?
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Like, this is great.
Great. Appreciate all your insight from your work to your military background, your up and coming, and all that good stuff. So we appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all and everybody else's support for Speedball. And, we wouldn't be where we're at without the community. So hopefully we continue to provide great things going forward, especially 2025. Really excited about what's coming up. So,
yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. This podcast is made possible through the contributions of all of our listeners who always ask us great questions, leave us reviews, and contact with us through social media. Thanks to all the fellow makers as well who take time to be interviewed and share about their lives and businesses.
And thank you to Ashley from Boldover Ceramics and Lindy from Lindy Garner Ceramics for their assistance on the Wheel Talk Podcast Instagram. You are invaluable. Thank you to everybody.